I need you more. Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melenda, and of course, we are here today at a special time. It's the middle of the day for us over here in North America, lunchtime for our friends on the West Coast. But of course, it is the evening over in Europe, and this is one of our sort of European-friendly streams that we try to do every once in a while to make sure that we get some fun faces into chat that we normally don't see as often because it's fairly late over there, and give them a chance to kind of hang out and shoot the shit with us. So welcome, everyone. Great to see you. Of course, unfortunately for our Australia friends, it's the middle of the night, but that apparently isn't stopping Beowulf. What's up, Roman? Good to see you. Smendon, hello from across the pond. Vorpal Salmon. Yes, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to listen to me at regular speed today because you won't be able to fast forward as you normally do. By the way, shout out to Vorpal Salmon, who sort of kind of guided the stream topic today and kind of cast the deciding vote, if you will, for this topic. I don't know anything about Hillfolk. Is it drama? Yes, it is. It is called the DramaSystem, but I don't know if anything else uses the DramaSystem, so we'll see. We'll get into it in a little bit. But yeah, it's fantastic. Bob has a chance to listen to the whole thing since he's working. So now, because Bob is at work, he can actually listen to a stream, which is kind of funny. Voy is going to catch the VOD. Ironically, Voy, we do a stream at your time and you're on vacation, but that's okay. Okay, all right, Yuval. Yeah, well, Yuval, this is all for you guys, so I really appreciate you being there, and thank you for the 2-month sub on the channel as well. Thank you so much. As a reminder, you, of course, can support this channel by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/knightsoflastcall. If you're not already a member there, we do have a fairly large EU contingent, as well as people from all over the world and all the different time zones. Also, if you are a member of Amazon Prime, you can support us by heading over to twitch.tv/knightsoflastcall, and you can give us your Amazon Prime sub. You get one each month. You get it as part of your subscription. Doesn't cost you any extra money. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you should give it to me or somebody deserving of a couple extra bucks. Doesn't cost you any money. We also have, we're going to be doing a first look today at a game. And we have an affiliate link in the description below. If you use that, it sends a couple bucks my way. It doesn't cost you anything extra as well. And of course, we have our super chats and tip goals. Our super chat today goal is to support these first looks. Of course, as you all may know, PDFs have gotten rather expensive. They sometimes run $20, $30, $40 now. So anything that you could do to support us there is great. Get that fund refilled. You can also do that by supporting us through our affiliate link. And additionally, we're doing today as a first look, but we have sort of talked about doing a Daggerheart stream that is EU time focused. And we actually have potentially a Daggerheart box set giveaway with some European person's name written all over it. So if we can get that EU Daggerheart stream, we'll try to do a giveaway for this as well. And a good chunk of that tip goal will actually go towards paying for the shipping, because shipping this thing to Europe is like 40 or 50 bucks. It's okay. I don't need money. It's fine. But welcome, everybody. I'm fantastic to see you all here. We have not covered the DramaSystem, Roman, so this will be our first time to get into it. I don't know that we've covered a lot of Robin Laws' games, and we'll talk a little bit about Robin Laws as well. Welcome, Nomadic. Great to see you. Level 2 janitor is here. Yeah, for some people too, it's the middle of the day. You know, maybe some people can't make our evening stream. So if you're at work or you have some free time during the day, these midday, mid-afternoon streams can also be kind of effective as well. Hello, buongiorno. Yep, Pete, that's what we're here for. Thank you, Bruno. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, Mr. Dotson. Let's get those YouTube likes up. Thank you so much. Welcome, Ken. It is 11 a.m. in the West Coast. Guten Tag, guten Tag. Fantastic. All right. Well, you're going to pass out because you were up all night. All right. Sounds good. All righty. Now, of course, today is going to be just as a reminder, of course, thank you to everybody. Thanks to our incredible patrons. For those of you who don't know, we are in the process of building out a new studio. This may look like the same old stream, but I'm actually in a different room in my house. It's my bedroom, bigger room than I used to stream from. And we have set up a table. I built a new custom point table. Bob and I have put together some of the set elements from our old studio. We've moved out. And currently we are equipping and buying some of these. This is a Black Magic Design Micro Studio Cinema Cam 4K G2. This is a fairly top-of-the-line production camera that is used for live studio production. It uses SDI, and that might not mean anything to you guys, but for someone who's had to deal with the pain in the ass of HDMI over the last couple of years for most of my cameras, I'm really excited to switch to an SDI-based workflow. It is very cute. It is very small. It is very lightweight, and that makes it very easy to mount on a non-tripod solution. I want these things to be hanging from my ceiling. Additionally, because of the limitations of this new studio, these new cameras are actually going to be somewhat in the shot, potentially. And so,
Rusted Grail tipped $75. You keep teasing that you will do a RPG first look and then it's another game. Maybe I should pay attention to Discord.
Rusted Grail. Yes, you should pay attention to Discord. Rusted Grail, thank you so much for your $75. Well, that's a massive tip. Thank you so much. You're going to get a strong for that one. I have mentioned Die RPG several times. I did say there's a small vocal contingent of people who want me to do that system. And I'm like, and I've never read the comic book, so I don't actually know that I'm the best person to do this comic book. But, Rusted Grail, the support's there, and I will put it on the next poll, and we'll maybe try to get something. Although there's some people who want to see a Wilder Feast game, Genesis game. There's a lot of first looks. First looks are very popular. The only problem I have with first looks is, if I do a lot of them, it does get to be a little expensive. If I do 3 or 4 first looks in a month, that can run me $150, or even sometimes, more depending on the system. That might not sound like a lot of money, but it's a couple of bills, right? And so that's why the support for the first looks is so important, like Rusted Grail just did. So thank you so much, Rusted Grail. That is an incredibly generous tip. I'm not sure if you meant for that to go over to the Super Chat goal, but you let me know, Rusted Grail, because I'm assuming you wanted that to be a first look fund as well. So thank you so much. It's going to be a little wet. Can we just buy you a PDF if we want you to first look? That could work, Jacob Online. It's a little bit easier if you tip me, because then I can keep it in my Drive-Thru-RPG library, which is convenient for me when I'm like calculating how much money I spent. When I get gifted things, it's a little bit awkward from a accounting perspective, and I like to make sure that I am doing things by the book, if that makes any sense. Because like if you give me money, that comes in as income, and then if I buy something, I can write that off as a tax expense. So that's why buying things is like kind of important there. Sending me copies is a little bit weird, Smenden, because it's like I need to make sure that it was like officially, I do everything by the book. I want to make sure the publisher's getting their money. Like if you have a copy and you send me a copy, I'm not going to use it. That's pirating, in my opinion, or maybe even in the law's opinion. But either way, I'm not supporting the creator, and I absolutely want to support the creator. So anyways, these new cameras are going to be in the shot a little bit. So it might be back here. In the shots of our new setup, because we don't have the room to put them completely out of frame. And so one of the reasons I wanted to upgrade to these cameras, in addition to them being extremely good quality, is their form factor, how small they are. So I can put them in the background and they won't take up a huge amount of space and mess with people. But they're not cheap. So, this is the lens to that camera. So this is the body with the lens. And the lens alone is like $400 or $500. So it was an upgrade. But luckily, we have incredible supporters, and from the Patreon and from our YouTube audience. So we were able to sell some of our old cameras from the studio, put those funds into the additional fun and upgrade these things. Again, it's just going to make it easier enough. Yeah, so I mean, obviously they're going to be somewhat noticeable, but my hope is that when this is back here in the background, it's things. So, what kind of cameras are you using? Yeah, these are Blackmagic Blackmagic Designs Micro Studio 4K G2. The G2s are important because they have a USB-C connection, but the body I think is $1,100 or $1,200 US, and then it is it doesn't have a lens, so you have to it's a ILC, interchangeable lens system camera, so you do need a separate lens, and this is the Lumix Panasonic Lumix G series 14 to 42, and that's about $450 or so. So all total you're about $1,600 for the whole unit. You also it uses SDI, so you need a specific SDI capture card to be able to control the cameras and record the data. You can't just plug it into a USB port. Anyways, long story short, all this is happening because we care about the production quality of this channel, and we're ready to play some games here at the studio, and we're ready to bring it back. We're bringing sexy back, as they say. All right. So today we are going to be doing a first look on a game called Hillfolk, a game of Iron Age drama. Lawful Chaotic Neutral.
Lawful Chaotic Neutral tipped $50.
Cheers.
I really don't care about today's topic, but I do care about your new studio plans and EU-friendly streams.
Lawful Chaotic Neutral. Number one, that's a great name. Number two, thank you so much. You're making me laugh because you have just summed up in a nutshell like what makes other content creators go crazy about our channel, which is people who we're not huge, right? But people who watch this channel, they like other content creators in the YouTube sphere. I'm not going to name names, but even someone like the illustrious Mr. Steven Clicker, I will name his name, are like, I don't understand. You literally just tipped and we're like, I don't even care about today's stream topic, but here's a big tip. And it's like, it just drives people crazy because I'm like, yeah, because they just don't understand what's happening here. Thank you so much. And I'm excited. I'm excited that you're excited. And I definitely need to, remember our EU friends. You guys always come out and support the hell out of us. And honestly, in complete transparency, it was really hard for me to do because I had a job and now I don't have a job. And so it's actually easier for me to do these type of streams. And there's a part of me that kind of wants to go back to, doing more afternoon streams instead of evening.
Tipped $5.
Hey, Duncan, what's up?
To obscure RPGs, Pog.
Yeah, there we go. Duncan, we're getting, not only is this obscure, it's also old. So this is us in our prime state. And we are DDB. I saw your stream super chat too. I just want to kind of finish up this. I want to finish up because DDB actually said something about Hillfolk, which is great. But thank you so much, Duncan DT. I appreciate that you appreciate this, and I do want to talk about what Duncan DT says, but I also want to talk about what Lawful Chaotic Neutral is saying. So, ultimately, when with me losing my job, it means I can do some more midday streams, and that actually has certain advantages to me because I do want to keep streaming, but sometimes having Tuesday night and Thursday night locked up can be kind of bad for scheduling purposes. And so there is a desire for me to do sort of more midday streams, not just because it's cool for you European friends, but also because for some of my US-based audience, they can't watch during the evening. That's family time, that's kids, that's their own hobbies, that's their own games. A lot of people, turns out, are either working from home or have a job where they can easily pull up their thing and listen during the middle of the day. So I want to do more of those. The only problem is when I lost my job at that time, I was fostering 2 dogs, big dogs, and it was just eating up a lot of my time. And my dad had just died, and it was pretty crazy and chaotic, I would say, through May and even into June. But now things are much more stable. We're still obviously adapting after the loss of my father earlier this year, but the dogs have finally been, taken in by a humane society. So we're not doing that. So now, since the first time since losing my job, my time is kind of my own now. And so I would like to get to a system where, maybe twice a month, Smenden is something that I would say is probably where I'd like to be. Not once a week, but maybe like twice a month. But yeah, something like that. So anyway, so thank you, Duncan. I appreciate you appreciating our obscure games because that's really important to what we do. And I want to talk about that because if I were to do a Daggerheart stream in primetime US and talk about Daggerheart, we were getting 300, 400 people watching our stream, which is awesome, which is amazing. I love to see it. And a lot of people chasing views might go, I want to do a Daggerheart stream. My Daggerheart stream is going to get 10,000 views or 15,000 views. Hillfolk is only going to get 1,000 or 2,000 views. The thing is, though, in YouTube land, the difference between 15,000 views and 2,000 views is the difference between $60 in ad revenue and $10 in ad revenue. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. I can do one of these obscure streams, and because the patrons and because of the people like Duncan who tip for this kind of content, it actually works out to be better for me from a financial stability perspective that I can do it this way. So thank you so much. All right. DDB backed the Hillfolk Kickstarter. Discovered to my chagrin that my core regular players couldn't do character-based drama to save their lives. Great idea for a system, though, and campaign settings were stellar. Thanks, Derek. Okay, well, then I'm really interested to get into this because I don't know a whole lot about the game other than what I've heard, from tangentially from the indie sphere, right? What's up, Simon?
Simon Mago 1997 tipped $10. Sadly, I won't be able to watch the entire EU-friendly stream because I'm running my D&D 4E campaign tonight. But I'll catch up the VOD.
See, now the EU folks are running their games and they can't watch. But rock and roll, dude, Simon. 4E's awesome. Are you playing it on VTT or real-life table? I'm curious to know because I still love the idea of 4th edition. Part of the reason I'm actually really interested in Daggerheart is because of in my opinion, some of the very close analogs and some of the same kind of feel of 4th edition. Power sources, roles, the powers and stuff like that. But the lack of a officially supported VTT has kind of kept me off of 4th edition. Yeah. I hope so, T-Dog. I'm glad you appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you, DDB, for that. And thank you, Simon, for that. Roll 20, but it's pretty heavy to track everything. Yeah, fair enough. So for those of you who don't know who Robin Laws is, let's start with that. So Robin Laws is a famous game designer, arguably one of the most influential thought-based game designers, but also created a number of game systems which you probably have heard of, even if you didn't know Robin Laws made them. But one of the books that he's probably most well known for, aside from his game mastering, and actually, I have it. I just don't know if it's in this room or if it's in my other room. But Robin Laws wrote a book called Robin's Laws, because his last name is Laws, Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering. And this is a book which has good advice. Some of it I don't necessarily agree with, but it is a good book about it's a seminal book about the thought process of GMing and being a good game designer. And a lot of that ideas went into some of the 4th edition D&D stuff, which is like the DMG, talking about exactly, Arjun, talking about the idea of the player types, and you have the storyteller and the specialist and the power gamer, and this idea of treating the game as as an entity unto itself, and actually realizing that there's like a social construct to these games. So Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering is considered a seminal work. But Robin Laws also has created a number of very famous RPGs, and one of them is Feng Shui, which is where we mostly get the idea now of minions and minion-based rules from. And Feng Shui is sort of a martial arts over-the-top RPG, which is considered to be pretty influential for when it came out. And the other one is Gumshoe, which some people have very strong feelings about. But the Gumshoe system is this idea of a sort of emulationist detective game where you are solving riddles or mysteries and investigating, but Gumshoe is sort of set up in a way that you don't actually have to be a good investigator in order to solve the game. So that's sort of what he's known for in the past in terms of publishing. He also runs a podcast with Kenneth Haidt, who is another sort of egalitarian RPG celebrity, I suppose, in the RPG space. And they run a Ken and Robin Talk About Stuff, I think is the name of their podcast. So, he's sort of a Renaissance man. I would say that his games definitely lean more towards, narrative emulationist ideas rather than like being this like nitty gritty tactical, Pathfinder 2 4E games. That doesn't really seem to be Robin Laws's space. So Gumshoe walks so Brindlewood Bay could run. That's a great way to put it, Jacob Online. That's a great book. Hey, thank you, Gene A.
Goblins and androids tip $25. Playing an but appreciate an EU stream.
Look at this. All of our patrons are busy playing other RPGs, but the Goblins and Androids, thank you so much for that, and thank you for continuing to support the game, and thank you for continuing to support this channel. Really appreciate being here, and I really appreciate you stopping by and saying hi. And we're, like I said, I'm going to try to do at least one, but maybe 1 to 2 sort of EU-friendly streams. I'd also like to do one Australia-New Zealand stream at least once a month with our buddy Vin from over in Australia. Those are a little bit tougher because I either have to get up at 5 in the morning or I have to stay up till 5 in the morning. But yeah. Anyways, the podcast is very cool. It's pretty, it's pretty like high level nerdy stuff, which is, to say something about it. But and so now he works for Pelgrane Press. And Pelgrane Press, of course, is the people behind 13th Age. They also publish some other games. That's who Robin Laws is. And this is Hillfolk, a game of Iron Age drama all the way back from 2013. So again, this game is over 10 years old. And we're going to get into it. So before we get into it, first looks are not a review. I have not played this game. I actually have never played this game, even though this game has sort of been around indie games on demand forever. It just never was a game that got to my table, so I've never played it, and so I'm not in a position to review it. This is just going to be my knee-jerk first reaction to reading the rules. And when we take a look at first looks, what we usually do is apply Jared Sorens's Big Three, which is, what is this game about? Do the mechanics of the game support it? And how does the game reward us? And usually, if a game has a solid enough identity, good mechanics that support that identity, and a good reward or play pattern system that keeps us engaged in the game, then we usually can say that the game is probably successful. Whether we like the game or not is sort of independent of that. So that's what we're looking at a first look. We're just kind of getting inspired, seeing what tickles our fancy, what do we think is cool, what do we think is weird, how wet is the game, and we'll go from there. So I hesitate to call it a review. And at the end, I will give you my thoughts based off of this, high-level cursory examination. Fat Bard Ferrati, my first live streams. Greetings from Germany. Guten Nacht. Love the first looks. Keep them up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that you appreciate that, and that's awesome and fantastic. Germany is on my list of places I definitely want to go. Again, near the top of my bucket list is to go to Eschenspiel. Like, that is near the top of my list. I've been to Austria. I've been close to Germany, but I've never actually been to... I've been to Salzburg. I've been to Vienna, but I've never been to Germany. But it is up there. And again, I'd love to go to Eschenspiel. That's, like, near the top of my list. So, ciao, ciao. All right, Gulfo's on the way out. Thank you for stopping by. And my friends are throwing a music festival nearby, and I can't miss it. I'll catch the VOD tomorrow. Well, thank you. I hope you have fun, and thank you so much for supporting these streams. Again, hopefully next time, you won't. Well, maybe you will have a music festival. That sounds like a lot of fun. But hopefully you'll be able to stop by and enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the VOD. Thank you for the support. Hey, what's going on, Max? Finally made a stream for once. Love the content. Excited to listen along. Well, Max, yeah, absolutely. Don't do more than listen along. Feel free to chat and give me thoughts. And I mean, that's the whole fun of being here live. And that's the whole point of doing these EU streams. So thank you so much, everybody. That was incredibly generous of all of you. Thank you so much. I know, it's crazy, right? We have a lot of people over in Europe. So it was a Kickstarter. People did support it. All right, so here we have table of contents. Now, the first thing that stands out is this game is not super long, which I'm very thankful of. Normally, people give me these first looks. They're 350 pages, and I feel terrible because there's no way we're going to be able to get through it all. So we've got a section about what this game is. Okay, the PDF is bookmarked, which is good. We have a 10-page, 11-page section on creating characters. An idea about episodes. So this already starts to tell us that this is a more narrativist game because we're talking in terms of, like, structures, episodes, themes, scenes, right? So we structure our game around episodes and scenes, including dramatic scenes. So this is very much a narrativist game. extremely narrativist. We see meta currencies here about tokens. So this is very, very strongly about sort of dramatic opposition and kind of resolving things in dramatic ways. Then we get into procedural scenes. This is probably more, not necessarily like combat, but conflict. And we do get like 10 pages on that. We get some stuff about resolving consequences for our characters, minor characters, locations. There's a separate currency, perhaps, called Bennies. We have some GM information, basically notes on play and how to play. 5 or 6 pages. And then we have information about the Hillfolk cards and how to hack a DramaSystem. And that's it. 60 pages. Should only be 3 pages. Well, that's the rules. There's also like 20 series pitches. Lugs says, is this going to be another party story game mislabeled as a TTRPG? I don't know, Lugs. Are you the one who gets to define what a TTRPG is? But it's possible. I happen to like party story games, and I do think that there is a definition of a game being a party story game versus an RPG. Generally speaking, if I'm creating a character and playing that character, then it is an RPG. That's kind of the term that has been around since the 1970s. So I think we're good to stick to it. All right. Okay. The rules are 60 pages long, but then there's several hundred pages of settings. Got it. Okay. So here we go. So all of these are different, and look, they're designed by different people. Interesting. So you get a lot of stuff here. The rules are short, but there's a lot of settings. Hey, look at that, by Jason Morningstar. Jason Morningstar, by the way, the creator of Fiasco. Okay. So this is interesting. So we'll have to do a vote at some point because we can't obviously take a look at all of these settings, but we can maybe take a look at one of them. And then we have some appendices, which have some glossary of terms and some trackers and things like that. So, okay. Well, no, because 160 pages of this are, each one is a setting. We're not going to go there. But look at some of the names on this list. This is great. Jason Morningstar, Kenneth Haidt, Matt Forbeck, Wolfgang Bauer, McGay Baker, Ryan Macklin, Jesse Bullington, James Wallace, rather. Chris Pramis, Keith Baker, Will Hindmarch, Rob Heinso, Ed Greenwood. It's pretty sick. Tor, what's going on? We are taking a look at Hillfolk, a game of Iron Age drama using the drama. Yeah, that's quite a list. Apparently, Robin tapped all their friends. All right. Hillfolk is the first game using the DramaSystem role-playing engine. Let's see. Are there any other games that use the DramaSystem role-playing system? Hillfolk. Blood on the Snow. Okay, I've seen that one. Yes, Ryan Macklin is the guy behind the awesome and infamous backstory designer cards. That's correct. Hillfolk is the first game using the DramaSystem role-playing rules engine. In a game of Hillfolk, players take the role of Iron Age raiders struggling to protect and enrich their clan at a time of clashing empires. In a DramaSystem game, players, aided by a game moderator, collectively can create a compelling serial story of emotional need and conflict within a tightly knit group of players. What do we need to play? 5 to 8 participants, a deck of playing cards, a supply of poker chips or beads, 1 red, 1 green, and 1 yellow token per participant, about a dozen tokens of a 4th color, I use blue, as many index cards as you have players, writing utensils, scrap paper, time to weave an epic story, and 1 participant, the GM, may find it handy to have a smartphone or laptop on hand. Okay. Well, that's a lot of tools. So clearly there's a strong procedural element to this game. Why this game exists, this is very Robin Laws, is that there there are footnotes to this thing. So there's one red, one green, one yellow token, and then there's a footnote. You may find it easier to find tokens in standard poker chip colors. I use non-standard poker chips in the desired colors. The correspondence to the red, yellow, green traffic light pattern is much easier to remember than another color scheme, making it worth the trouble to locate these chips in these colors. So scenes in stories can be divided into two categories, procedural and dramatic. In a procedural scene, the characters confront and overcome external obstacles. They fight opponents, they conduct chases, they investigate mysteries, they explore unfamiliar environments. When they succeed by talking to others, it is by negotiating with characters who exert no particular emotional hold over them, over practical matters. In a dramatic scene, the main characters confront internal obstacles, seeking emotional reward from the people they care about, for good or ill. Historically, role-playing games have concentrated, now remember this game came out in 2013. Historically, role-playing games have concentrated on procedural action, giving short shrift to dramatic interplay. They're based on adventure genres, which focus on the external over the internal. And I should note that, you know, one interesting comment about this is, and even though this was written back in 2013, is I think one of the things that we've seen, and we've actually seen people like, Brennan Lee Mulligan kind of talk about this negatively, which is that, you know, he very infamously says, like, I don't want rules for dramatic scenes, right? I want rules for procedural scenes. I want rules for dealing with combat. Did the arrow hit my character or not? Because I can do the dramatic stuff. And what Robin is saying with this game is, I believe that there should be support for these dramatic scenes. And I think you've seen a lot of people who play D&D and, you know, they're either just as interested in the dramatic sort of the internalized or interpersonal scenes as they are with the external conflict scenes, but the rules and the mechanics don't support that at all. And there's some people who I think say, you know, that's good. I just want to be able to people call it role playing, which I think is a terrible term. But Robin is saying that I think if these things matter to people, then they should matter to the game. Anyways, when scenes that ought to be dramatic arise in the typical role-playing game session, they tend to start strongly but rapidly stall out. We talk about tension curves and falling all the time. Players whose characters find themselves in conflict with one another typically dig in, refusing to relent. They do this because they don't want their character to lose. And because they believe that, by sticking to their guns, they're doing what their characters would do in real life. Story momentum grinds to a halt as the exchange reaches an impasse. In real life, though, when we enter into emotional disputes with people we care about, we sometimes relent and sometimes dig in. That's because we need emotional reward from the people in our lives. Fictional dramatic scenes have long observed and replicated this pattern. DramaSystem observes and replicates those basic techniques. This is a game of drama that works the way fictional dramas do. So this game is not trying to simulate, it is trying to, right? It's trying to emulate via its narrative mechanics. Again, with the footnotes. That's the other game. I completely forgot about this, but that's the other game a book that Robin Laws is also very much well known for, is Hamlet's Hit Points. From their main goal comes the following additional features. Long-term story play. DramaSystem shares common purpose with the Story Game School. So there you go, Lugs. He's acknowledging that there is an overlap. DramaSystem shares common purpose with the Story Game School of Role-Playing Game Design, which privileges the exploration of narrative over other design goals, such as strategic decision-making, tactical butt-kicking, or the simulation of imaginary environments. Again, you know, you can tell Robin Laws is a very academic author, because you can obviously very clearly see him sort of highlighting and talking about the idea of narrativist, gamist, and simulationist design principles here. Story games typically focus on delivering a fun and challenging one-time story that wraps up in a single setting, aka Fiasco is my classic example of this. Dread RPG is another one. DramaSystem shines in long-term play, in which a group unfolds over an improved narrative over an extended period. Over time, they come to relate to the characters they would to the protagonists of their favorite ongoing television drama. Easier to GM. Unlike some rightly acclaimed story game systems, DramaSystem retains the role of game moderator, a participant apart from the rest who guides the action. Harder to GM. So it's easier to GM and harder. Whereas GMs in traditional games enjoy nearly unlimited power to shape the narrative by determining the obstacle the PC face, DramaSystems rations their interventions. So no unlimited power for our GM here. That makes the effort of pushing the story in the direction you want more of a challenge with game-like tactical elements. These are all very pro-Derek things. You know, one of the things I talk about with Daggerheart is I like the fear metacurrency because I like that it puts certain limitations on me, and now I have to play the game too, and I like that. I like that I'm here to play the game. Working within these limitations becomes part of the fun. I completely agree. You can never predict the outcome of an episode. Awesome. Giving you a sense of surprise and suspense you do not get in games where you are granted virtual omnipotence. Couldn't agree with you more, Robin. Good stuff. Behind the curtain, we get these little sidebars in the game as well. And he acknowledges the mental shift to this new style of play. And here's what our book contains. We are sort of already have discussed these things here. So, create a character. To create the protagonists who make up the key of ensemble of a Hillfolk, we follow these games, we follow these steps. First, the GM will encapsulate the setting and its premise, as seen as the land and its people. The GM will determine precedence. First player in order proclaims his character's name and role in the tribe. So the default setting of Hillfolk is that, again, you are Iron Age raiders. Names in Hillfolks are metonyms, recognizable words indicating status, personality, appearance, or other traits. For example, see page 75. I see. So names like, your name might be, White Tooth or, Vigilance or things like that nature. Things like that. You don't have a name like Carl. No Carls here. Second, player proclaims her character's name, role in the tribe, and relationship to the first character. Players notate relationships on their relationship maps. Third, player proclaims blah, 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 blah. According to her precedence, everyone keeps going. So we pick a name and we choose. Step 7. In the established order of precedence, players proclaim their desires. In the same order, players define their character's dramatic poles. The GM chooses a new precedence order. The first player in this new order defines what they want from another character. The player of the other character defines why they can't get it. Both players adjust the statement as needed to reflect the first character's understanding of the situation. This is very similar in some ways to like creating a Fiasco layout. If you've ever played Fiasco, right? Each of you creates a character, and then every character has a need, and every character has a relationship. You draw it on an index card with the character to the left of you, and then you have a need, and then you kind of figure out how your needs intersect based on your relationships and the objects at hand. So there's a very strong Fiasco element there. So everyone's going to have a relationship to the people around them. Then everyone is going to have a want, or they're going to have a desire. They're going to have a dramatic pull, and then they're going to want something from another player character, and then they're also going to learn why they can't get it, and then we'll kind of go back and forth till we can sort of figure that out. We repeat this, and then repeat these steps until all characters are named as objects of at least 2 other characters' wants. Each player ranks his character's action types, sorting them into strong, middling, and weak. Players apply how I do it descriptors to their strong types. Based on what we now know about their characters, especially their dramatic poles, players complete the statement, my story is of a man or a woman who ... With a renewed order of precedence and an initial scene that is framed, play begins. All right, so a lot to cover there. Let's see, do we have a character sheet that we can take a look at very quickly? Yeah, okay. So here is the character sheet. No numbers, just a lot of text spots. And then there's a giant blank page for the relationship map. Yeah, so our literal, I am blank. I'm played by blank. My desire is blank. My role in the tribe is blank. Here's my dramatic poles, blank or blank. And then these are the people in my life. The character, who's playing them, what's our relationship, what do I want from them, and what are their dramatic poles. What I can do, rank these actions. Endure, fight, know, make, move, talk, sneak. And again, you're going to rank 2 of them as strong, 3 of them as middling, 2 of them as weak. And then if something is strong, you're going to note how you do it. I guess like how you do it really well. So that's it. That's our character sheet. Pretty simple. Okay, so the order of precedence. From time to time, the GM will determine precedence, basically initiative order. Before play begins, write your character's name on an index card. Whenever you need precedence order, shuffle them and note the result. For easier handling, write player names on spare playing cards with a marker, salvage them from an incomplete deck of cards, blah, 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 blah. Just basically make a random order of names. Okay, so just sort it out randomly. Okay. The main cast of player characters are influential members of a raiding band. It offers protection and patronage to a dispersed territory of farmer and herders. It attacks and steals from the farmers and herders of other territories. Together, you probably comprise the leader of the band and their inner circle. You are either related to one another by blood or so close that you might as well be. You are free to define your roles in the clan however you choose. Some characters might take a formal role while others might have defined. So you might be the chief or the elder or the scout or a priest or an oracle or a healer, or maybe you're the husband to an important figure or the daughter to the chief. There are more roles here than PCs. You don't fill all of them. Instead, the assortment of roles you choose tells you what roles your clan values. You might decide later, as reoccurring characters are established, that some of the above positions are filled by recurring characters, or they might not. When you define your relationship to another PC, you establish a crucial fact about the characters. You can make it any kind of relationship, positive or negative, as long as it is important. Family is the easiest, but close friendships also work. So, for example, Adrian decides that his character, Axe Handle, is the husband of Blade Singer, played by Beta. Later, Cloud specifies his character, Crow, is Axe Handle's brother. That makes Crow Blade Singer's brother-in-law. You can always tighten the web of connections between the characters by specifying multiple relationships. Cloud decides that Blade Singer is not only his sister-in-law, but his battle partner. They always fight together when they raid and feel a sense of protectiveness towards one another that transcends their relationship by marriage. And we negotiate back and forth if somebody suggests something that you don't really want. Keep track of the relationships as they are established during character creation with your relationship map on your character sheet. Represent each character as a name with a box or circle around it. Place your character in the center of the sheet and draw a line from your character to each other PC. Label the line with the nature of the relationship. So we've got Axe Handle here, right? They are married to Blade Singer. Hey, what's up? Ibrahim, thank you so much. Thanks for the coverage. Ibrahim for Pelgrane Pass. Well, yeah, happy to do it, Ibrahim. We're excited to take a look at this game, and that's awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, and thank you for the support. That's awesome. So, okay. And again, remember, folks, if this game is tickling your fancy, we do have a Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link below. You can use that. You can pick it up for a PDF. I think it's $20. And again, the rules aren't that long, but the book is pretty deep because it's got all these. So, for example, basically the long and short of it is you might not like Iron Age Raiders, And that's where all these additional settings come in, because they also have settings for being mad scientist or being at a Moscow, a remote Moscow station, or, being, lost in space, right? It's got a very strong fiasco element in that way, where you have all these different sort of play settings, So pretty cool. So that'd be sweet. So here we go. Yeah. So we actually draw a graph. Yeah. So, and this is a graph, right? So we note how these things are. So Axe Handle is played by Adrian. They are brothers with Crow. Dark Eye has, and by the way, you can sort of note, by the way, that some of the relationships, right, are bidirectional, and some of them are unidirectional. Right? Like Dark Eye has an unrequited love with Axe Handle, but that does not go back this way, right? Obviously, the protege relationship is one-sided. Being the Dark Eye being the protege of Fated means that Fated is not the protege of Dark Eye. Now, obviously, they have a connection, but it's just not bidirectional, which is interesting. Oh, you use Kumo.io, makes for a dynamic web relationship. That's pretty cool. I love it. It's kind of cool. Obviously, the fact that we're spending this time drawing this relationship indicates that obviously the relationship map is very important to the way that we sort of understand this character, this game. Sam, thank you so much. Already a member of our illustrious Knights of Last Call adventurers, is supporting the channel with a €5 support. Thank you so much, Sam. Appreciate it. Some more art here. All right, so. I'm getting strong. Yeah, definitely. I'm getting very strong, like, fiasco vibes from this game in some ways. Your desire. Your PC's desire is the broadly stated, strong motivation driving their actions during dramatic scenes. This is their, right? This is their ninja, right? From Legend of the Five Rings. The desire moves him to pursue an inner emotional goal, which can only be achieved by engaging with members of the main cast, and maybe to a lesser degree, recurring characters. Your desire might be seen as your character's weakness. It makes them vulnerable and places their happiness in others' hands. Because this is a dramatic story, conflict with these central characters prevents him from easily or permanently satisfying this desire. Think of desire as an emotional reward that your character seeks from others. Approval, acceptance, forgiveness, love, subservience, power, etc. You may be accustomed to thinking of character goals in practical terms, reachable by physical action or by participation in abstract activities. The pursuit of these procedural goals may take a key role in the story, but only insofar as it reflects an interior emotional objective. It's okay to use a practical goal as a starting point, provided that you go past that to a deeper dramatic goal beneath. Achieving the practical goal gets you nowhere until others around you grant you the emotional reward you hope it will provide for them. So, for example, a procedural goal might be that you will bring back the head of the other clan chief's head, on a spike, right? And that's like a practical goal, right? That is a sort of a procedural goal. But what you're really seeking, right, is the respect of your tribe. Or maybe you want power and you want that tangible goal as a means to sort of dominate and show your power over the tribe, right? So again, we're used to thinking in terms of not the emotional register, but the practical effect of that. These aren't things that we usually write down, right? This is all that role-playing stuff that most people do. And again, I hate calling that role-playing, but this game is focusing on that stuff. So yeah, here we go. Axe Handle wants to conquer the Kingdom of the North. That's his desire. Lawful Chaotic Neutral, LCN.
Lawful Chaotic Neutral tipped $15. I don't like that the purple line is not the same length as the orange one. Let's finish the stream goal. Please put this in the fist look bucket. Also, greetings to my fellow Germans in chat.
Awesome. Well, we're getting it up there. Lawful Chaotic Neutral, thank you so much for that. We are getting very, very, very close. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You're awesome. And shout out to the Germans. Again, one day when I go, it's a side tangent, but again, I had this like love fling story with this German woman once on a cruise ship, and I was like I was in a really, you know, emotionally fraught part of my life, and I was like almost like this close to being like, I'm gonna move to Germany to be with this woman. It was a crazy time. And that was and she lived near Essen. I remember that. She lived near, I don't remember the name of the city, but haven't you been to Germany, Bob? Aren't you German? New stream goal, Bob. Bob and Derek go to Germany and play D&D in like a castle. Anyways, sorry. Okay, I thought you stopped through it. Okay, but yeah, on your way to Italy. Okay. So anyways, Axe Handle wants to conquer the kingdom, but the GM points out that that is a practical goal, right? That is a procedural goal. But what's the real reason? And we could see here, when he was little, he was called a weakling. His older brother was supposed to be chieftain. Only when his older brother got killed by a lion did Axe Handle basically begrudgingly earn his father's acceptance. He wants to win their respect, right? And so by conquering the kingdom of the north, he will show them, right, that he earns that respect. That's cool. I like focus. I like that they take these little asides to do this, you know? Smendon says, goal would be filled up in record time if you did that. You laugh, but I'd support a castle game in Europe. Side tangent. I used to date a girl who was really into board games like I was, and we used to travel all over the world, and we would bring board games that were set in that, location, and we'd play that at that location. So, for example, In the Year of the Dragon is a board game that takes place in China, and my ex-girlfriend and I played In the Year of the Dragon on top of the Great Wall of China. And then like Thurn and Texas is a game about the, Hanseatic League and stuff like that. And we played it on top of this like famous fortress thing. I think it's Salzburg or something like that. And like Salzburg is a location on this map in Thurn and Texas, along with like Innsbruck and München and all this other stuff. Let me see if I can find that map. Anyways, long story short, that was a fun thing that we used to do. That was always fun. Okay, so from the outward to the inward, right? So this talks about reconfiguring practical goals to emotional desires, right? Making sure we're focusing on the emotion. We never went to Granada. I've been to Spain, Arjun. I've been to Spain twice, but I've never been to southern Spain. So I've never been to like Moorish Spain. So I've always wanted to go to Granada. And I love Alhambra. I have the Alhambra big box. It's one of my favorite games. Obviously, it's an old classic style game. Going to Carcassonne to play Carcassonne would be awesome. All right, so this is one thing I want to know with this. Dramatic polls. Oh, man, this is like Avatar Legends. So Avatar Legends obviously came later, but I love this idea of Avatar Legends, right? And Avatar Legends, right, we have this idea of our principal track, and we have two opposing principles. So our dramatic polls, this is what drives the dramatic characters, is this internal contradiction in our characters. We are torn between two dramatic poles, a choice of identities, each at war with each other. It's one of my favorite ideas from Avatar, and I love that it's here. Now, obviously, Avatar has a lot more mechanical proceduralism around that, so we'll see what we do here. With the help of your GM, make your polls. So, like, are you going to be a warrior or a peacemaker, a king or a tyrant, a destroyer or a participant? Are you going to earn respect or demand it? Are you going to seek safety or adventure? Are you going to be loyal or follow your ambitions? Are you going to be a madman or a visionary? Wisdom or folly? And I absolutely love it. And I can completely confirm from my games of Avatar, which has these principle tracks where, you're torn between these two opposing principles. Now, of course, in Avatar, being more a mindset, the idea is that you're trying to find balance. And the goal is the inequities of life are going to push you to the left, push you to the right, but can you find a way to walk that middle path? And I love this here. So, yeah, this is really cool. Your dramatic poles may redefine themselves during play as your character develops away from your original conception, or as you deliberately steer your character on a new course after exhausting the possibilities of the old. Change them at any time by announcing the group to the rest of the group. If you find yourself wanting to change them often, seek the GM's aid in arriving at a deeper choice that may last through changing circumstances and many sessions of play. A session is a single meeting of your game group, including bookkeeping, recaps, rewards, and everything you do around the table. The story that you create together during this session is an episode. Sometimes this distinction matters, but mostly you can use it. So a session is everything, including all the bookkeeping, but the episode, right, is like what actually happened in our imagined fiction. All right. Now bring your dramatic poles into focus by declaring what they will lead you to seek from particular other NPCs. Your character might find it easy to earn the desired emotional reward from other people around him, perhaps even other PCs, but we don't bother to note this on the character sheet because there's no drama in it. This is about finding the most acute sources of dramatic conflict. So there's an element here of this game having dramatic conflict between the characters being sort of the primary focus, right? Most of our RPGs sort of treat our players as a holistic bunch of people. They're sort of everyone's on team party. Don't split the party, and all of your sources of conflict and drama are external to the party. They're external to you. It's the necromancer is invading, the prince has been kidnapped, right? The orcs are coming. So this is about internal conflict, and not just internal from you, but internal within the party. So intra-party conflict. You might seek approval from your father, love from your mother, punish your brother, to be punished by the ex-lover that you betrayed. You then confer with the player of the other character to work out why it is hard for you to gain this emotional reward, right? If it was easy to gain that thing, it wouldn't be dramatic. The reason it's dramatic is because you need or want this thing from another player character, and they won't or can't give it to you. The easiest way for the other player to do this is to draw on their own character's desire and contradiction. This process fills in the troubled history that you share with another character members. I could never love you as I should have because when you were born, I was still in mourning for your brother. Even if you were to best me, which you never will, I'd rather be struck mute than admit it. The first and second PCs that you name as the withholders of your emotional reward. I mean, this already sounds like, right, so like toxic. The first and second PCs you name as your withholders of emotional rewards are your fraught relationships. Tunisia for the campaign for North Africa, best book, a couple months. It's a 1,500-hour game. That is legendary Platinus. Everyone knows that game for its legendary length. Studio Hobbit, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, Barbarians of Lemuria. You don't really need to push me. It's a favorite. It's a favorite of mine. I think it's fun. It's great. I've played it many times at cons. It's a great little game, and I don't know where my Barbarians of Lemuria went. It's back there somewhere. What's up, Tabletop Nerd Josh? Yes, this does sound like something a therapist would say. You need to evaluate that some of your relationships, especially those early relationships that you formed, these are the people who are withholding your emotional rewards. You have tied up your emotional satisfaction, your definition of who you are and how you should seek validity. These are fraught relationships, Derek. You need to reevaluate. List these people in the people in my life section of your character sheet. Also mark your fraught relationships by circling or highlighting them on your relationship map. If you find it a useful memory aid, include a notation describing the relationship that you seek. The importance of your fraught relationships may fade during play in favor of others. Still, the process of defining them will come to flesh out your character. So here we see, what we have here. So Axe Handle is the daughter of Fated, and you want Fated's respect. And Axe Handle is married to Blade Singer, and Axe Handle wants her obedience. Oh, wait, maybe Fated is Axe Handle's daughter. Yeah, okay. I think that's the way it is. Fated is Axe Handle's daughter, and Axe Handle wants his daughter's respect, and he wants his wife's obedience. Yeah, right. You need this game while watching Game of Thrones, right? Exactly. I mean, that's a dramatic game. It's a dramatic show. Is this game like a therapy session? You know, there's always a joke about like RPGs are therapy, and I don't really believe that, but this game definitely gets close. DDV says, like I said, this requires a, quite frankly, better class of player than Johnny Goblin Slayer. Timmy Goblin Slayer would be the more appropriate respect. I mean, this is sort of an indication. I mean, think about what we're talking about here, and now compare that with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Right? Compare that with D&D 5th edition. And these are all role-playing games. So to say that this is a very broad hobby is to, you know, to say nothing of the least. Yeah, right. Spike Goblin Slayer would be the real, you know, I've mathematically optimized my character to kill people. Okay. Lastly, although Hillfolk focus primarily on dramatic scenes, we will still sometimes have to do practical shit. We have to sometimes we still got to kick ass and, you know, take care of business and jump over pits. The game breaks down practical actions into 7 broad types. In this stage of character creation, you will have 2 of them as strong, 2 of them as weak, and the rest are middling. So in the core game, you can endure, we saw this in our character sheet, enduring, fighting, knowing, making, moving, talking, sneaking. So those are like the basics of the game. By the way, you can create your own narrower action types and make it one of your strong types. You can do this with a specific type and run it by the group if you wanted to do that. For each of your strong action types, write a short phrase or single word that describes your specialty. In a situation where it fits your specialty, you gain an additional advantage. Use specific detail. Don't just find a synonym. So, for example, you might have enduring as one of your strong things, and you could say that they heal quickly, or that they resist disease, or maybe you're very good at fighting, and you always say that I'm specifically very good at sword fighting or spear fighting, or you know weather, or you're good at making armor or weapons or wine. All right. Lastly, given what we've now discovered about your character, complete this sentence. My story is of a man or a woman who, ... This sentence should evoke your desire and possibly your central relationships and contradiction. It serves as a reminder for you and keeps you focused on the story, taking into account the collaboration of other group members. If your sentence is more than 25 words long, your idea is not simple enough. Short and to the point. My story is of a man who would be king. My story is of a woman who yearns for revenge. My story is of a fighter with a man of peace hidden inside of him. My story is of a woman who sees no difference between what is good for her and what is good for the people. All right. Expect character generation to take several hours. And don't short it. It's part of the game. Okay, that's it. That's how we make characters. So simple, easy foot. So when we're done, we will have a very basic character that we have some idea of, you know, if they do need to do things, we'll know what they're good at, what they're bad at, what they're okay at. And then we'll have this complex web between us and the other PCs with relationships, desires, things that we want out of them. And then our own character is going to be torn between 2 opposing metrics. There are 2 wolves inside of us, right? Which wolf? This is 2 wolves, the game. Which is kind of interesting. So that's it. That's the basic making a character. So drink sip. All right, episode. So this is, again, the very narrative-focused game here. Each session of Hillfolk presents an episode, a series of loosely connected scenes during which we advance our emotional goals and perhaps perform procedural tasks that grant them dramatic leverage to our other dramatic scenes. So even when we do have to do procedural things, it is only in service of those dramatic scenes. Distinguishing each episode is a theme for participants to weave loosely or obviously into the events. The GM in particular is looking for ways to bring the story back to the themes as the episode develops. A theme is broad. So like, for example, this episode, the theme might be one of, injustice, or maybe the theme is one of loss, right? And if you look at most episodes of dramatic television, there's usually sort of an arcing theme of how the different A plots and B plots and C plots sort of tie together. For example, the opening episode of your first Hillfolk series takes the theme of hunger, introduced in an opening scene called by the GM. At the end of the first session, the GM chooses the next precedence ranking, aka we shuffle up our cards. It sets out the order in which players will choose the themes for the following episodes. So the GM picks the first theme, and then each player in order chooses the theme for the coming episodes. Once everyone has had a chance to pick a theme, start over again. So here are some sample themes. Cool. What do we got here? We got ancestral sins, betrayal, buzzard circling, cages, the lion's den, losing, the morning after, the spear of truth, secrets, rebirth. Ooh. I think it's poll time. All right. All right, what do we got? We got betrayal. I like that one. Ooh, guilt, losing, outsiders, ties that bind, and what price? Victory. All right. I think we have our poll here. Yeah. All right. What theme would you want to play an episode of? Put your answer in chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm curious. Those are the 6 that stood out to me immediately upon reading the list. I do like this idea of it's not like it's not super written in stone, but it's just more kind of almost your job as GM is to sort of guide or steer the conversation or steer the themes back towards that core central theme of the episode. And the fact that the players get to choose this is cool because it means that, you kind of basically say, hey, like, this is kind of my episode, that I'm trying to sort of push. By the way, as a reminder, of course, you can, if you want to join us and be part of the fun of the Knights of Last Call community, we're almost 500 members strong here, a very elite group of elitist RPGers who talk at endless lengths about the philosophy of RPGs, but play a shitload of RPGs as well. Most of our gaming chat rooms have been full these last couple of weeks with 3 to 4 to 5 games going every single night. Who knows during the day? We have games going right now. You should check us out at patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. Link is in the description below as well. So we'd love to see you there. It's the best way to support the channel, and it's a great way to, be a part of our community. I'd love to see you. All right, well, what price victory is definitely coming in here? Hey, DDB. DDB, thank you for the super chat. Derek, are you going to talk about the campaign settings book too? Well, do you mean like the final setting? Yeah, we're going to pick one and we'll take a look at it. If you mean like the last part of the book. I don't know if there's a separate book because I only bought this one book. And that's all that was involved in the drive-through RPG thing. So, all right. Well, it looks like what price victory is kind of the defining winner, but nobody wants to talk about losing. All right. You need, it's the middle of the night, Beowulf. Go to bed. Right. I should also point that out, Smendon. Great point. We are a community of gamers. It is not just about gaming. We support one another. We love talking about our hobbies, our passions. We talk about health and fitness a lot in our gym channel. and all that other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that we talked about. There's supposedly an anime channel. I don't go there. Magic the Gathering channel. Although everybody talks about Commander, and I'm like, teardrop. All right, so our episode consists of scenes. First, we have an opening scene that introduces the theme. We then have an indeterminate number of development scenes that riff on that scene and refer to it. And then finally, a closer, a final scene that completes the theme or ends organically on a cliffhanger, a conclusive line, or other exciting moment. Each scene begins when the next player in the calling order calls for a scene, laying out the parameters under which it unfolds. These are the cast. Names the main or recurring characters take. Wow, this is very much like Fiasco. What year did Fiasco come out? I'm looking for my Fiasco. Fiasco. All right, when did Fiasco come out? Fiasco came out in 2009. Okay, there's a lot of, because like in Fiasco, like when it's your turn to call a scene, you literally pick which characters are going to be in the scene and where it's going to take place, and there's a whole thing depending on whether you set the scene or set the outcome and whatever. Cast. Names the main or recurring cast take place in the scene. As a player, you must pay a dramatic token to call a scene that your character does not appear in. Okay? So if it's our turn to pick a scene, by default, we're in that. If we're not going to be in the scene, then we have to pay one of our dramatic tokens. So there's a limit, I suppose, maybe, to how often we can do this. Setting, where the scene takes place, or at least on the outset. Situation, a brief description of what's happening at the scene's outset. As excitingly as possible, the caller describes the location, the activities of the characters involved, and the prevailing circumstances. The situation may be a simple meeting of characters to hash out an emotional conflict, or can introduce a complication, a new plot development affecting some or all of the main cast. The scene, dramatic or procedural, then unfolds from this complication. Examples might include, someone has burned down the granary. A prodigal has returned to the clan after a long absence. Your trade delegation has gone missing on the road to the Olive Clan Leads. Bobby Joe shows up at the Quickie Mart to try to convince Luann to go in with him to the plan to steal all the meth from the high school gymnasium, or from the high school science lab. Sorry, that would be like a Fiasco scene. Rumors of a ghost haunting the creek are spreading like wildfire. If you've also played A Quiet Year, there's a lot of similarities to this with The Quiet Year. Sometimes it's smoother just to cut right to the dialogue and work out details as they become relevant. Caller narration may be challenged if players object to what you describe them as doing, or if they feel that your complication assumes a plot advancement that should be played out instead. Other players cast in the scene may bounce off your description to describe what they're doing or other details. So it's very, very collaborative, very much like, we're kind of doing what we're doing, but we kind of assume a certain amount of active participation from the other players. Before the episode's first scene, the GM picks the precedence order. The player choosing the episode's theme always calls first. Then comes the player who actually appeared first in your precedence order. The GM inserts herself into the order, replacing the player who chose the theme. Okay, so the GM does get to call a theme. Scenes are then called according to this altered order. So it's Beta's turn to choose the theme. Beta's turn to choose the theme. She selects Lust, and she calls the first scene. As a GM, you shuffle your precedence cards and conveniently, for the clarity of this example, draw the player's names in an alphabetical order. Beta gets substituted by my name. So then it would be Beta, who gets to go first, Adrian, then me, then Cloud, then Delia, Edward, and Franca. Once you reach the end of the calling order, it rolls over, continuing the already established precedence order. So then we keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. As I thought, this game is not for me. When the stream, sometimes the useful thing of a first look is being like, hey, look, I can explore this game, and it's not for me. And that's okay, too. Players may request adjustment. A lot of text in this book, by the way, because we don't want to get like feats and stuff like that. Players may request adjustments to a called scene parameters by announcing a challenge. This is a game mechanic. How do they do this depends on what element they're objecting to. Except where otherwise indicated, challenges are done with a vote. With a show of hands, all players side with the caller or the challenger. The GM votes to break ties. Should the scene seem satisfying in keeping with the narrative to date, she votes to uphold the call. When the call seems somehow punitive or unfair or contrary to the spirit of the crowd of challenge, she votes to uphold the challenge. Players may see that a scene might justifiably be challenged, but elect not to do so. In most group, callers adjust their choices as soon as someone raises an objective without having to go through the process of a challenge. The threat of a challenge leads to resolution without it. So basically, if you're like, no, that wouldn't happen, I think we should challenge this. So there's a little bit of like player tension here. I will admit that almost any group I would ever play with would probably just do this, where it's like if somebody had a real problem, we would like backtrack and try to make it happen. I don't think that we'd ever get to a point where we literally had to call a vote. I feel like that could lead to bad feelings. Now, to be fair, like a part of the thing I like about A Quiet Year is kind of disagreeing with the community and taking, what is that token called in A Quiet Year? Pissed off tokens. I can't remember what they're called, but like where you express your growing discontent. Maybe it's called discontent tokens. Okay. Ducking a scene. You may a contempt. Thank you. Contempt tokens. Actually, I have 2 copies of A Quiet Year, and I don't know where either of them are. They got moved somewhere when we were moving everything, thinking I was going to move my house, but I can't seem to find them, and they're stuffed somewhere in a bag or a box. All right. You may challenge your cast. Remember, the person who's calling the scene gets to put you into a scene, and you can choose to duck it. You may challenge your casting in a scene you do not want your character to take place in. Remember, however, that in drama, characters frequently take part in a confrontation they would just as soon avoid. Hillfolk challenges the traditional role-player's credo of complete control over their character at all times. That alone is going to turn a ton of people off to this game. Hillfolk challenges the traditional role-player's credo of complete control over his character at all times. Be prepared to detach and allow your character to be pulled by obligations beyond your control, just as we often are in real life. The caller may then acquiesce to your objection and call the scene without you, or may further describe the scene so that your character's desires and pulls compel your participation. You can duck this compulsion by spending one of your tokens, drama tokens, which goes to the caller. After you successfully duck a scene with a cast of 2, leaving nothing to play, the caller starts over, calling a new scene that does not include your character. In practice, players rarely duck scenes. They're more likely to try this instead, crashing a scene. To insert your character into a scene that they have not cast you in and you actively want to be in, spend a drama token or a Benny, 2 meta currencies, ouch. The caller receives that token or that Benny. It costs nothing to join a scene if the caller wants you to join. A caller may block your unwanted entrance by spending a Benny. This is not a challenge per se, but mirrors the procedure for ducking the scene. Again, I find that this is interesting. I find that like if I was like, oh, I really want to be a part of this scene, I find it very unlikely that the person would be like, no, you can't be a part of this scene. So this whole meta currency exchange thing seems very strange to me. I mean, we're all here to make for dramatic moments, and we all want to be parts of scenes, so it would be very strange for someone to be like, no, I deliberately do not want you to be a part of this scene, and I'm going to require you to spend a token. I mean, maybe that's part of the game, but I have a kind of a interesting... I've never really seen that kind of play out. Challenging a time jump. Players may object to jumps in times that preclude them from taking actions that they see their characters as wanting to take resolve. Resolve a challenge to a time break with a vote. You can always jump back in time to play flashback scenes. If you're reasonably sure your scene won't change the outcome of the one at hand, you don't need to feel compelled to challenge it. So if somebody's like, okay, let's say it's 2 months later, and you're like, no, wait, I wanted to do something, you can try to challenge it. You can also challenge a plot jump. If, like, for example, we skip past something and you really want to see that played out instead. We can challenge just for novelty. So we could basically say, this is not a new scene. We've already done this scene. I don't think we need to redo it. Like many of the grounds for challenge, this problem is more theoretical than actual. Players don't want to repeat themselves. Yeah, I don't see that a lot of this, challenging business seems unnecessary. I think that most groups that I would be playing this game with would be more than willing to, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you wanted to be a part of this. Yeah, like, I really think my character would have a lot to say here, So DDB says, one of the things that's not readily apparent in the rules is that this system generates characters who actively don't want to work and are each other's villains. It's a total inversion of D&D framework. Okay, well, that's a more interesting, DDB. That's a good sense of perspective. And Lord of Aces, Vorpal, says, well, the meta currency is the game. You use it to manipulate the player characters and the narrative. A presence of one character might disrupt your best laid plans for creating drama by causing drama. Well said, Beowulf. Got it. Okay, so DDDB says, an example of crashing a scene that you would want to prevent is Chad, the school bully, wants to crash the scene where you are showing your sensitive side to your sweetie, Abigail. Okay, DDB, I get it. So there is a kind of competition, right? You're advocating for your PC, and they want to ruin it because their characters' goals are at odds or at ends with your own. It's interesting. Okay, cool. I'm here for it. I think that's a cool way to look at it. All right. The narrative drama is the game. It's almost like it's a drama system. All right. Going to procedural. If we do something that might actually require a sort of skill check, any player, including the GM, can demand a procedural resolution. Unlike other challenges, it only takes one objector to trigger this. The narrating player may avoid by withdrawing or just adjusting it to satisfy the person who says, I think we should make a check for that. I don't know how we do check here. We have the right to describe any physical circumstances, the behavior, our own actions, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, dramatic scenes. This is the heart of the game. In a dramatic scene, we engage in verbal conflict over the granting or withholding of a desired reward or emotional reward. The character, what's up, Hodop? Good to see you. This role is more often than not taken by the scene's caller. The character deciding whether or not to extend it is the grantor, right? All participants, including the GM, collect and spend drama tokens throughout the course of an episode. Everyone starts with 0 tokens. A central pile, or the kitty, a eucharism. I don't know, is kitty used anywhere else? I know it's used in euchre. Contains an inexhaustible supply of tokens. We recommend blue to represent the drama tokens. Drama tokens left unspent at the end of a session contribute to a player's chance of winning Bennies and then go back to the kitty. They do not carry over to the next episode. So use it or lose it, although you might have a chance to get a Benny if you have a lot of drama tokens and didn't spend them. Tokens do not represent or simulate anything in the fictional reality that you're collectively depicting. They are not diegetic at all, and he goes out to describe that. Instead, they bend events towards a satisfying literary rhythm. This might be the most narrativist game I have ever read in my life, and I'm not mad about it. Fiasco comes close, but this might take the cake. Where characters sometimes prevail and they are sometimes defeated in emotional confrontation. They overcome gamers' natural tendencies to always dig in when challenged, forcing them to play their characters like real people, impelled by emotional need and obligation. If you are calling a scene in which your character acts as the petitioner, it is the norm. Simply go ahead and enter the scene without announcing your intent. You don't have to make your character the petitioner, although it costs you a drama token if you're not present at all. You can designate a recurring character as the petitioner. When you do this, suggest what the petitioner wants. Never call for a dramatic scene between 2 NPCs. No one wants to listen to the GM talk to herself, especially the GM. Okay, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to do this as a vote. Okay, as a GM, all right, here we go. Poll is up. As the GM, have you ever had a full-ass conversation with yourself at the table? Yes, all the time, once, and never again. No, that sounds awful, which I misspelled. Votes in chat. And I will... I'll be right back, guys. All right. All right. Once and never again is our top winner. I think I'm definitely in the once and never again audience. Jonathan, I think that would probably be one of the examples of where I would do that, right? But even then, I tend to like, if I do have NPCs that are talking amongst themselves, I tend to just sort of describe it. Or like, I might emote as the lead villain, you know, like the head villain goes, you know, the heroes are approaching faster than I expected. I thought that the harpies would slow them down, but they appear to be undeterred. And I'd be like, you know, the evil villain's lieutenants nod, you know, in agreement, you know, indicating that the harpies were weak and that they would never fail. You know what I mean? Rather than like actually have a conversation with myself. So I would probably not go into full dialogue. DDB says, so I seem to be the only person here who has actually run this, and the amount of, whoa, holy cow, not for me, that I'm seeing tracked with my players. The game lays bare a whole bunch of unspoken RPG foundations. It's a good way of putting it. All right. All right, playing and resolving. So we call for a scene, we set the cast, the location, how much time has passed, and lastly, what do we want? What do we want consciously or unconsciously from the grantor? Players portray their characters through dialogue until the petition is either granted or it becomes apparent that it has been conclusively rebuffed and the scene is losing energy. Take care, Simon. This occurs when the players in the scene start to repeat themselves or players not taking part in the scene grow bored and restless. Where necessary, the GM steps in. So this is the role that I always play when I am playing Fiasco. Fiasco doesn't officially have a moderator, like it doesn't have a GM, but I almost always the one teaching the game and running the game. And my job as like Fiasco person, and I'll go and scene. I mean, like they try to teach you this in Fiasco is to go and scene and cut it off. And I typically have to do that role because I'm paying attention to these factors. But yeah. Hey, there we go. Where necessary, the GM steps in to declare the scene concluded. Great stuff. If the answer is yes, the petition is considered granted, even if the other players feel the petitioner didn't get everything they wanted. Neither the caller nor the other players may gainsay the petitioner's player on this point. If the answer is no, and the rest of the group agrees with the petitioner's assessment, the petition is considered to have been refused. If the answer is no, but the other participants feel that a significant shift in emotional power from grantor to petitioner occurred, the group will vote. The scene's caller gets an extra tie-breaking vote if necessary. So basically, you're basically like the petitioner, which is oftentimes the person who called the scene, the person who's like, I want to see in this scene do I get what I want? And if the answer is yes, then they get what they want. And, no one else could really say that. If the answer is no, I didn't get what I want, then it got refused. And if it's no, but there was something that happened here, then I think it's important that then we might have to consider, and then we go to the vote. So here we go. A grant needn't give the petitioner, so remember you're the grantor, needn't give the petitioner everything he wanted in exactly the terms he wanted it. Any major shift in emotional power from grantor to petitioner counts as a grant. Something you'll reach clear consensus on what constitutes a major shift. In a few cases, you'll have to vote. Even a force must respect the bounds of the grantor's established character. You can't and shouldn't expect to turn an avowed enemy into a loyal friend in a single scene. Forced petitions represent the character giving in for the moment, not undergoing a life-changing epiphany. They certainly do not play like hypnosis or mind control. A force causes the subject to grudgingly act in a friendly or friendlier than usual manner in this particular instance. Axe Handle meets with the Slipper, a representative of the Northern King. He barges into the scene demanding respect, even though the Slipper has never met him before and considers him an ignorant barbarian. Slipper goads and insults him throughout the interview. In the end, though, after Adrian pays 2 tokens to force a grant, he offers Axe Handle a position in the king's command, while continuing to subtly mock him. Adrian protests that he wanted more from the Slipper. He wanted true respect and a better practical offer. You argue that the Slipper has already made a major concession. He now treats Axe Handle as a useful, ignorant barbarian instead of a useless one. On a first meeting, embrace Axe Handle as an equal would be completely outside of this wily Northerner's character. Although Adrian continues to feel that he should have gotten more for his force, the other players agree with your argument and pronounce the scene and force to have been played fair. If he wants Slipper to admire Axe Handle as a peer, he'll have to keep working him over the course of many episodes until the shift from his initial attitude seems more plausible in the storyline. One scene does not a turnaround make, right? So there's no like diplomacy, from hostile to friendly because I rolled high. So there's kind of like an element here, like from Torchbearer, right, where you like have to negotiate the context of your concession from a conflict. All right. Every dramatic scene ends with the exchange of one or more drama tokens. If the petition is willingly granted, the grantor earns a drama token from the petitioner if he has one, or from the kitty is not. So if you play a game, if you go along with it, you can earn a drama token. If the grantor refuses, the petitioner gains a token. If the grantor says, nope, I'm not giving you what you want, they have to give you one of their tokens. And if they don't have any, it comes from the kitty. If the player or GM playing the grantor chooses not to relent, the petitioner may, by spending 2 drama tokens, force the grantor to grant a significant emotional concession. So if you earn enough of these drama points, you can then spend 2 of them to force a concession. They may still withhold some of it. They don't like that's what that whole sidebar was about. They don't have to like give you everything right away, but it has to be a meaningful shift, right? It has to represent a meaningful shift of emotional power. At the end of the scene, the forced grantor receives the 2 tokens from the petitioner, providing that the force actually takes. Beowulf, 100%. Smith slides over 5 tokens. Hear me out. That is exactly how this would go. Oh, that's so good. Okay. The granting player may block a force by spending 3 tokens. These are paid to the petitioner at the end of the scene. And the petitioner doesn't spend the 2 that they would have spent, so they gain 3. So it's kind of like a raise, call, raise, re-raise. After this force occurs or gets canceled, the same characters may not, for the duration of this episode, be called into a similar scene to reverse this result. A new significant element, as judged by challenge-based voting, must be added so that you have another kick of the can. You just can't keep repeating or be like, I earn his respect. Okay, in this scene, I want to disrespect him again. You know, you can't do that. Players who aren't directly involved in the scene can support an attempt to force or cancel a force by giving their tokens so they can stake you in the force or the block. They describe what they say or do to make the force more or less likely. If you support a force which the grantor blocks, you get your tokens back. So then they have a scene here of play, which we're not going to go through because I think we kind of get the idea of it. But there's a lot of in-character talking, and we're kind of going back and forth, and ultimately we're sort of heading towards a decision. Now, this might seem like this is crazy, but if you've played a lot of Fiasco, like I have, and you are watching 2 characters play out a scene, and you, as the non-participant characters, are waiting by with your black or white dice, deciding how to vote to decide who gets what they want in this scene, this actually makes a lot of sense. And I don't begrudge people who have never played a game like this because it does seem very strange and weird, but it can really produce some really fun results. And I'm a fan of Fiasco as a con game. Now, of course, as Robin Laws stated, one of the stated goals of this game system is to break free of the sort of one-shot system that Fiasco and games like it tend to sort of, tend to be resolved around. His whole goal with this is to create something that is ongoing, you know? Players not directly in the scene can stake you, but must describe what they say or do, or how do they say or do if they're not in the scene. Players not directly involved in a scene may support an attempt to force by giving their drama tokens, provided their character is present in the scene. There you go. It's if they have to be there, Beowulf. They're just not the ones at stake. You know what I mean? To be fair, calling the game Hillfolk is kind of silly because the game has like 28 different settings that you could play. And so calling it Hillfolk is kind of crazy. They should have just called it DramaSystem, I guess. Right. They got to be present, just not in the spotlight, which might be a reason why you want to get involved in a scene, even though you're not involved in it, because you want to be there because you want to block somebody else, and you can't block them unless you're present to donate your drama tokens to enable the block. All right. Now we're metagaming the narrative, but that's okay. That's what this game wants us to do. I don't know, Jim Scott. Okay, so this is a great question. Is this a gamist game then? No. It is a game that has narrativist mechanics. all mechanics are essentially gamist, right? Just because a game has mechanics, that's what makes it a game. The question is, what are those game mechanics for? Well, Cardboard Enjoyer, I'm glad you're here as well. I also enjoy Cardboard. I want to play more board games, man. I'm assuming that's what your name means, but I really want to play. Vintage Zebra says this game sounds wild. If it does, as someone says, challenging a lot of RPG fundamentals, then that sounds makes it sound even more attractive to me. All right, we're going to go over certain special cases. We don't need to go over those because, you know, but then needless to say, they deal with things where like there's no contest, the person isn't like debating it. There's multiple people who want something. We'll kind of skip some of that here. Okay, here we go. So soft opens. You can start a scene without specifying a situation. Instead, the cast in the scene simply start talking to each other, and the scene works organically towards dramatic conflict. This is called a soft open. It's up to you to make sure the scene goes somewhere in a minute or two. So make sure that your character is in the scene. The GM may guide the characters by asking questions. This is very like Fiasco. In Fiasco, you can hard frame or soft frame a scene. You can either decide to be the outcome. You can either set the scene and let others decide the outcome, or you could decide the outcome but let others set the scene. So it's kind of a similar idea. Soft opens tend to be rare as players begin grasping on dramatic scene constructions. Basically, like once players figure out what they want or need out of the game, they're going to call for more hard scenes. Sometimes you'll call for a scene where we just get together and discuss things, a conference scene. This may or may not resolve into a dramatic scene. And here we have a quick reference to remind us of how the game works. All participants, including the GM, start with no drama tokens. Under certain conditions, we gain drama tokens from the kitty. Drama tokens are given out as a reward for granting or consolation prizes for being refused. If a petition is willingly granted, the grantor gains a drama token. You either take it from the person who is the petitioner, or you take it out of the kitty if they don't have any. If the petition is refused, then the petitioner gets a drama token. If you want to force them, you have to spend 2 and give them back to them. But if you want to block the force, they get to keep their 2 and you give them 3 instead. As a player, you can also spend a drama token to call a scene in which your character does not appear. If you want to call a scene between characters and you're not in it, the default is that you're in it. If you want to dive out of a scene that you don't want to be a part of, if you want to crash a scene that you didn't get called into, or if you want to prevent someone from crashing a scene that you just called. At the end of the session, count up your unspent drama tokens. These contribute to your chance of winning a Benny. So basically, the more drama tokens you have, you won the session. That's how I'm going to take it. The more drama tokens that you have, you won the session. Because you get a chance of winning a Benny. Unspent drama tokens do not carry over to the next session. So this is like this is your scoreboard in my mind. Procedural scenes. These are scenes in which we pursue practical things like a goal, like battle defenders of a neighbor's territory with swords and spears as we try to steal their cattle, journey across a desert, etc., etc. How do we resolve that? This section shows you how to determine what happens when your main characters pursue a practical goal. It represents simple starter rules to resolve procedural actions. Use these when the group is new to the game. Experienced hands can later move on to a more versatile and advanced resolution system, as seen in Blood on the Snow, a DramaSystem companion. If no one ever expresses a desire for more additional choices, stick with this version. So here's where our green, yellow, red tokens come in. Each player starts with a green, yellow, and red token. When you spend a token, set it aside. The others remain unspent. When you've spent all 3 of them, they refresh. All 3 of them return to your pile, ready to use again. Your pile of available tokens carries over to the next session. It does not refresh between sessions. So green, yellow, red don't refresh unless you use them all. And then we play with some playing cards. all right, I don't really care about this. I'm not saying that I don't care about this, but there's some sort of like you play a card and there's a token and who knows? I don't know. But I'm going to skip this because it's not that important. But basically, the GM spends a token to set the strength of the obstacle, and then if you play a green, they draw 2, yellow 1, and they get to knock out a card or something here. All right. Anyways. I'm not too concerned about this. Needless to say, there's a way to use playing cards and these tokens to resolve like whether you made it across the desert or not. They give us a lot of... This is the simple rules. I wouldn't want to see the more advanced rules here. But needless to say, the GM spends for the opposition. The GM draws the target card. The players spend and draw cards. We determine the final result, and then there are consequences from the action. Scenes should never include more than one procedural resolution. Fold additional or side actions into the main narrative or wait to call a new scene. It could even be a flashback where necessary. Dramatic scenes dominate DramaSystem play, even though they're simpler and thus briefer than the procedural rules. Most groups start out by calling lots of procedural scenes because that's what they're used to playing. They find them easier to conceptualize at first. As they find their legs with this system, procedural sequences tend to fall away. After a while, a group may all but drop them, tending instead to accept jumps ahead when procedural activities take place off stage to a mutually agreed outcome. This is exactly the play pattern that is meant to emerge over time. That said, groups develop their own internal cultures. A group that continues to call and enjoy a procedural scene is also doing it right. They're having fun and building the story they collectively want to tell. All right, Joshua Chapman. Thoughts on the art? Looks good or meh? Okay, I'm going to say something here. Generally speaking, I have not loved Pelgrane Press's art. Most of what I know from Pelgrane Press is from Feng Shui, Gumshoe, and yes, 13th Age. I'm not a fan. I don't like their art. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I don't like their art. Now, I don't even know if the artists are the same from product to product, but a lot of times these publishers tend to work with some of the same artists, so I am assuming that there is some overlap. Nothing in this book has jumped out at me as being particularly exciting or interesting. So, yeah. We also have rules for conflicts between two players. So then we have rules for creating supporting characters. These are sort of our minor characters, our NPCs. They're either minor or recurring. It's mostly a bookkeeping distinction. Minor characters just show up for what they need. Again, this is very similar to Fiasco. Recurring characters are like a minor character who gets promoted to recurring status and keeps showing up again and again and again. Recurring characters may act as petitioners and may seek grants from other players, but they cannot seek them from other recurring characters, aka the GM is not going to talk to themselves. All right. Bennies. DramaSystem rewards the players who most consistently and entertainingly enact their dramatic polls. At the end of each episode, each player, in turn, makes a brief statement highlighting how he entertainingly brought out his character's dramatic polls over the course of the episode and in relation to the episode's theme. Any story with a theme inherently includes the opposite of that theme. A story about war is also a story about peace. A story about hunger is a story of nourishment. You might describe yourself moving from one pole to the other or bringing both poles into your characteristics. I demonstrated my warrior side when I led the raid and my peacemaker side when I argued to spare the prisoners. In both cases, I demonstrated my personal power. When a player is unable to articulate a case, the GM makes it for them. All participants then vote, ranking. Bennies are called, like, like, have you heard like a job? Like, you're like, oh yeah, the job has some sick bennies, right? Like the benefits from the job, like, free car, free health insurance, oh, it comes with a stipend for food, right? We call those are the bennies. Those are the benefits, basically. Most of the time, I think people really take it from Savage Worlds. I think that's the first RPG I know of that referred to their sort of meta token as bennies. All participants vote, ranking the other players in order. The argument is just a reminder. Voters base their rankings on how well they thought the players brought out their drama. Moving from blah, 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 blah. The GM then totals each player's vote tally. The number of drama tokens a player has in hand is then subtracted from this number. The two players with the lowest scores gain 1 Benny each, right? Because you want to be ranked number 1, because that'll give you a lower score. And then you subtract the drama tokens. And then you get a Benny. So what does a Benny do? When you have a Benny, you can spend it for, as the name suggests, a narrative benefit that kick in during play. Once spent, you remove the Benny from your character sheet. They don't refresh, and you can only spend them by earning a new one. Cash in a Benny for any one of the following: a drama token, a procedure token, to draw an additional card during a procedural scene, the right to jump the queue and call a scene immediately after any other scene. The queue jumper's next scene is skipped, after which the existing call order is observed for usual. So you don't actually get to take a extra turn because you skip your next turn, but you get to take your next turn right now. To jump into a scene that the caller wants to keep you out of, to block another player's attempt to jump into a scene, and the right to burn any one token held by another character, returning it to the kitty. And you can only spend one of these per scene. So it's kind of like a super narrative drama token. I mean, at worst, you can cash it in for an extra drama token, but you can also use it to sort of cut in line. If you really want to tell another scene, you can use it to jump into a scene, block out of a scene, and sort of have more narrative authority to do so. So in other words, if your character is acquiring a lot of drama tokens, you will have these bennies, which will give you increased ability to affect the narrative in the next episode. So it's kind of an incentive from a reward pattern perspective, that if this was an episode where you sort of didn't push your beliefs as much because you were granting a lot of petitions, you're going to end up with a lot of drama points. Now, of course, people might still say you did a shit job and give you really bad votes. But in theory, having those drama points and you didn't spend them means you didn't really push your character's objectives to get your needs met. But that means you might be in a position to earn a Benny, which means that the next time you play it, you're going to have this kind of extra superpower to make sure that you get your stuff done. Oh, DDB, don't worry about that. Beowulf does that to everything. Everything Beowulf does ends up in, and then I added it to Pendragon. Plus 7 other systems. Right, Beowulf? All right. Notes on play. This gives us great freedom to build stories together. It imposes less on the emerging narrative than many deservedly popular story games. This freedom, along with its ability to emulate fictional drama, all right, is the game's central feature. However, like a blank page, great freedom can be creatively flummoxing. So here's just some help to sort of understand some of the narrative things here. Like, what is our intention? Think about the beats. This is information from Hamlet's hit points. How to think about how to set up scenes in order to, create meaningful structures of storytelling. So again, interesting information there. Seasons. After 10 to 12 episodes, you may want to look for a suitable breakpoint and declare a season of play at the end. The term originates with North American TV. The first scene of the new season, called by the GM, either resolves a cliffhanger or jumps ahead in time, with the characters adjusting to a new major change. The end. You may establish in advance how many episodes of Hillfolk you want to play or allow the game to wind down, as most role-playing series do. During the final episode, main characters lose their immunity. Any procedural contest putting their survival at stake can end in one or more protagonist deaths. GMs can no longer pay green tokens to keep supporting characters alive. The group may choose to ignore this rule for non-Hillfolk settings where the threat of a character death is never an issue. A heartwarming historical saga about a pioneer family surviving on the prairies should not end in an orgy of bloodletting. Or should it? And then we have some information here about, this is Robin Laws to say, GM Masterclass. DramaSystem is at the same time harder and easier to GM than traditional role-playing games. There's kind of a snooty elitism to Robin Laws, which I appreciate because I can be a snooty elitist myself, but Robin absolutely, has that. So love you, Robin. So this is information about, how to be a good GM and what your job is here to do, to look how to call your scenes and to because your job as the GM is to sort of assess where the episode is going. You're really not involved. Like most of the major episodes are going to be the players challenging other players in scenes to grant and petition and grant from one of them. You're kind of a side character. Your role as the GM is really kind of on the sidelines to a certain extent, but you have some additional powers and some additional things to use your scenes to do, to make sure that the theme of the episode stays on track, to bring in players who maybe haven't had an opportunity to get brought in, right? To ratchet up the tension, to do callbacks to prior established facts or other, narrative thread lines, comic relief, heighten existing conflict. Right. Very much a true director. It's not about you. It's really about the protagonist. You're just here to sort of kind of stir the pot, or to give the story what it needs in order to keep it going and keep it on, the direction of some sort of coherency. Oh, here we go. Look, spotlighting neglected players, complicate an existing drama. Really, truly, yeah, a game moderator, not really a game master. Take care, Bob. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly because we're almost to the end of the rules. And like I said, we're not going to go through all of the different settings. We also have our job is to move things along. This is the and scene rule from Fiasco. Dramatic scenes typically run for 5 to 10 minutes, which is much longer than you'd see in a TV show. Dramatic scenes in other media are an improvised scene at a role-playing table is an improvised first draft in which players flail around, repeat themselves, and go down all sorts of unproductive verbal alleys. Dramatic scenes in other media are final drafts pruned to the bare essence of writing and film editing. Basically, don't let the people, no offense to role players, but you all tend to just waste everybody's time. Right? This is what we talk about, the difference between productive role playing and literally pointless FBT, right? Fluffy bullshit time. This isn't about just chewing the scenery and being oh, this is very good. Ale. No, get to the point. This is a drama, right? You need to think about this we have a timeline. We only have, 48 minutes plus commercials to get our story across and to deal with the themes of this week's episode. Let's go. But also as a GM, your job is to help people out, when people are stumped and don't know what to do next, give them suggestions, right? Basic GM 101 stuff here, guiding them during their character creation, maybe give them some ideas that can work with other people, Maintain the group's focus, right? Make sure everybody stays on point and doesn't just, go off on tangents and sidetrack, sense when jokes and digressions are about to sidetrack the group, cut them off and continue to move the group on. You really are a moderator, and even it says this, when the game is really cooking, players enjoy watching other scenes unfold as much or more as their own. Keep signs. So I would kind of hate this. Part of the reason I like to play role-playing games, part of the reason I like to be GM is I do like to be involved. And just acting as a shepherd isn't as interesting me as being someone who's actually like an active participant. So that part of the game I tend to not really like. Paradoxically, this is what I was talking about earlier. Some groups may be too harmonious for successful drama system play, which encourages you to pit your fictional PCs against one another in pursuit of emotionally charged results. Memorable stories aren't about nice people doing nice things. DDB says, yeah, Derek, this game is very much when the players are doing it right, the GM isn't doing much at all the system. And that is not necessarily for me. Although I respect it, it's not necessarily for me. All right. Then lastly, we have some more information about jamming, like how your characters might evolve. For example, if you start to respond by all petitions by blocking them, if you start to respond to all petitions by granting them, or if you find it hard to call scenes because you really don't know what your character wants, then this probably indicates that your character needs to change and evolve. Maybe what they originally wanted has changed. Maybe the needs of the setting or the story have changed. Maybe your character has gotten what they wanted and doesn't really know what they need anymore. So this might be an opportunity to pick a new desire and new conflicting poles and adjust your character as the game seems fit. Lastly, information about how to add a new player to your game. Iluvatar. I joined in late, but does anyone else dislike the text formatting and page layout? Snobby elitist. It's a little rough. I mean, it's a lot of 2-column. I mean, this is like literally just a 2-column brick of text with massive gutters. So it's, you know, and these are long paragraphs, no bolded system font. Now, to be fair, you know, this is, you know, ooh, look at this. All right, I'm going to read this. Immersionists confront their comfort zone. Players favoring a popular and common approach to characterization in traditional role-playing games may initially struggle with DramaSystem. But if they can overcome this hurdle, they'll take to it like ducks to water. Some players favoring a style known as immersionist train themselves to think only in character, playing by feel, and minimizing other considerations, such as the intervention of the game system. They prefer to keep their role in the creative authorship of the narrative as far out of mind as possible. DramaSystem tests that resolve by asking players to act as authors, because it requires them to think analytically, not instinctively, about what their characters want. They may find scene calling challenging. Get around this by relying on soft opens and conferences. Start scenes with characters yours want something from, without pinning down your intentions ahead of time. Over time, you'll discover that the game allows you a very close identification with and focus on your character and the world. With its minimal rules and play-centered interaction, you will spend more time in your protagonist's head than in any traditional game. Now and then, you briefly step out of character to discuss things such as intentions and petitions, but these are from your character's perspective. All role-playing games require out-of-character decision-making. DramaSystem requires a different set of those decisions, and in the end, these will soon become invisible to you, just as the artificial act of rolling a d20 to see if you hit an orc becomes natural through repetition. If the ultimate goal of your immersion is tight identification with your character, then DramaSystem will deliver that for you by the bucket load. To be fair, Beowulf, it says don't rely on these. It says you should start with them because this is the baby's first narrative game, and getting out of the mindset of being an actor and taking an author stance, right? Because part of the thing of doing a hard open is taking a very authorial stance. I want this scene to be about my character getting this from you, and not have it just emerge organically, but actually go into that scene with specific intention as an author, as a director. And by the way, these terms might seem very confusing to you if you haven't spent the last 18 to 24 months debating GNS, actor, author, director stance, pawn stance on Knights of Last Call Patreon and our Discord. Isn't it fun, people, to see a game where the actual game text talks about the things that we normally bullshit about in Dumpster Fire? Anyways. So, hey, look at that. Enjoy talking about RPGs? How about 24/7? Join the Knights of Last Call. Patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. All right. Pelgrane apparently does make a set of playing cards, although you can totally use normal cards as well. I don't know anything about these Hillfolk cards, and they weren't included in the PDF, so I'm going to leave that out. And then there's some stuff about hacking the drama system, which I don't particularly care about as well. All right. So this is about the land and its people, and about creating so this is like the generic land of the Hillfolk, the Northlanders, the Southlanders, the Belt, the Desert, the Inner Sea, the Rocky Wastes, yada, yada, yada. But, and there's all this other stuff here, and there's information about the setting, but there's also a ton of settings which got included in this game in the additional settings. So if you don't like the idea of playing Iron Age, rustic, quasi-Viking raiders in a kind of pseudo-European setting, they have a ton of other additional settings, which were written by some illustrious people. And these are additional series that the game provides. So, for example, this one is Hollywoodland. 1914. A tidal wave of money and power is about to wash over the dusty orange groves east of Los Angeles. And every movie business huckster, old money artisto, and gun-toting yig intends to dip his bucket in the flood. Filling the bar, also off-topic tangent. I got the Starfinder 2nd edition PDF. Sick. Well, thank you for filling the bar, Karma. And yeah, that makes sense. The game releases in a couple weeks, and obviously you have some first mover advantage. Karma, I look forward to officially getting the game. Obviously, we are well past the point where Paizo would ever send us anything new. Obviously, I don't want to take place in out of the I don't want to become like a tired point, but I really do think Starfighter 2 has a much looks much cooler to me than Pathfinder 2. And I really hope to, once the game releases and I get my hand on the PDF at Gen Con, because again, I'm not going to get it early. Paizo's not going to send it to me early. I do want to spend at least a couple episodes talking about the new classes. I mean, obviously the core rules are going to be mostly the same, but we can talk about some of the rules that are different. But I also want to dig into all the classes. I think it'll be a lot of fun to dig into them. People are pointing out that my geomapping is terrible and that this is Israel. Okay, never mind. It is totally Israel. All right, yeah. Makes sense. Assuming that the ocean is the Mediterranean and that this is the Sea of Galilee and this is the Dead Sea. In which case, and the River Jordan. All right, fair enough. It is a map of Israel and Palestine. All right. Thank you, Karma. Appreciate that. But we are going to cover Starfinder 2. We're also going to cover Battlecry when it comes out. So what do we got? We got Hollywoodland, and we've got characters, suggestions, themes to discuss in this particular thing: wealth and class, disruption, dislocation, freedom, and moral panic. We've got some ways to sort of increase the tension of it. So this is obviously as far from a, Palestinian-based Iron Age warring tribes type situation as you could possibly get. But it's still drama. And here's mad scientists, and we get Moscow Station, World War 2.1, Malice Tarn, Inhuman Desires, Brigade, colony wars. This is like as humanity spreads across the solar system, new colonies have sprung up on Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the asteroid belt. Clashing interests create exploitation, cultural division, and ultimately civil unrest. Which side will you choose when the revolt comes to your home? Mafia Sentry. This is, if you want to play a mafia-based game. Inhuman Desires. Monsters in love fight to retain their humanity amongst struggles for power, survival, or a way out. You play humans, both those who are and those who were, that have lost track of their humanity by becoming a monsters. Beowulf, it is totally Monster Hearts, the setting. For Motion, Aztec Empire struggling against Spanish colonialism. Dead Weight is a professional wrestling organization setting. The White Dog Runs at Night is moonshining in the South during Prohibition. Henchman is you are the henchman of a villainous mastermind. Battle of Wits is London in the early 18th century, being a writer, dramatic critic in the era of satire and scandal. The Waddleys is a family of Lovecraftian cultists struggling to thrive in modern society while hiding their secrets and vying for flavor of the old guys. Have been waiting for my WWE TTRPG. Well, Era, you don't need to go any further than... I don't even know where it is. There is a worldwide wrestling. There's a RPG about wrestling. I don't know why. I don't know. I moved my book, so I don't know where they are. Yeah, worldwide wrestling. But like worldwide wrestling is like very much based it's like you cut a promo and all this other stuff. Anyways, we got Horns in the Hills. You are a colony of ants. Racked by war with a rival anthill, faces a horrific fungal zombification outbreak. Tesseract, Wyoming is cyberpunk, but you're like not the people who aren't super technological. Passengers aboard a ship plying the Caribbean. A theater festival town struggle for control of a community racked by drug crime and culture clash. Lesser Fae and humans strive for advantage in the fairy queen's court. A desperate group deal with the epoch-making fallout when the UN makes contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence. I mean, you can see there is a lot of stuff here. Maroons by Rob Heinsoe. Escaped slaves and Indian tribes intermingle bloodlines and spirit pantheons in a jungle refuge they defend against European slavers. And deadly fairy monsters invade an alternative Elizabethan England, perhaps with the Virgin Queen's I can't pronounce that word. With the Virgin Queen's permission, leaving the defense of the realm in the hands of an outwardly motley but tightly knit group of adventurers, plotters, and lovers. Conniving. I always want to pronounce it as conniving, but it's not conniving. It's connivance. Connivance. No, anyways, connivance. I think that's right. Is it connivance or connivance? Conniving is the same root. Okay, well, that's good to know. There's some words here. The page pitch Ibrahim mentioned is very charming. That one is on Blood in the Snow, though. Well, we don't have Blood in the Snow. Is the intention that you play through? Oh, no. Zipperfist, absolutely not. No, these are standalone. These are standalone shows, basically. Although, I mean, you could do some sort of weird, crazy Doctor Who or Quantum Leap type game. And then lastly, in the appendices, we've got a glossary of game terms. We've got a reference for what we can do with our tokens. We have our tracker to track the main cast. Good for the GM to have, just so he kind of knows everybody. How to break down a scene, who was in it, what happened, so you can kind of take notes during the course of an episode. Here are some common intentions to help you out. And then, of course, our character sheet, which is pretty much defined by, the people around you and what you want, what's your desire, and, what are you torn between, or what are your dramatic poles. And then for procedural stuff, we have what we're good at, what we're bad at, but the relationship map is just a big pink blank piece of paper that says relationship map at the top. And then here's our recurring character list. Again, just sort of keep track of, and probably is more of a GM reference sheet. And that's it. That's the last page in the book. So, I don't want to undersell anything here. I understand why Derek is running through these, but the campaigns or frames are really good and full of wild stuff and great character ideas. Yeah, I mean, they're all well presented. There's a lot of pages, so this is the deadly fairy monsters invading an alternative Elizabethan England. They talk about, what your characters could do or why they might be approaching it, who your characters might be. They could be an opportunistic pirate, a privateer chartered by Queen Elizabeth, a bewildered but sword-skilled noble, an intrepid elf airship captain loyal to the Horned One, humoring the court of Elizabeth with feigned loyalty. Then you get a bunch of information about the setting, the themes, how to, what are the dramatic things that you can do to ratchet up the tension. England's continental foes take interest. Will they invade? Will they begin harrying with the raid? There's rebellion in Ireland and Scotland and Wales. And then we also get information about the people that might come to oppose you. The Virgin Queen herself, the Tulane, the characters that sort of struggle against you. Names that you can use throughout the course of the campaign or course of the scene. So, there's a lot of stuff here for you to base some stuff off of. Yeah. It's like I think Daggerheart campaign frames contain a little bit more meat, but it's very similar in its approach, Smendon. I agreed. So that is Hillfolk. All in all, it's interesting. So I think my first look here is very conflicted, because here's the thing. That type of game, it does seem very similar to me to Fiasco. And I like playing Fiasco. I like playing Dread as a one-shot. I would have a hard time, I think, wanting to play this for more than a session or two. The Boulder is conflicted. I know it is designed for long-term play. The whole idea is that you have this involving thing. But I think that for me personally, that kind of gameplay experience, which really lacks gamist elements, is just not as interesting to me. So I think that for me personally, it's much more interesting to have those gamist elements be present in the game. And while this game has a lot of narrativist elements, it doesn't really have a lot of gamist elements, which is fine. I mean, it's obviously very much focused on the compelling. But again, I'm having never played the game. It is not a review. But I know that some of the resolution mechanics feel very similar to resolution mechanics in Fiasco. And while that is fun, I don't know that it is interesting. And part of my problem in games, my personal problem, is that fun games that aren't that interesting, and interesting doesn't mean interesting means there's a mental there's a mental emotional mental stimulation. There's an intellectual challenge, an intellectual stimulation. I find that OSR games, OSR games are very fun. I don't find them to be that interesting, which is not a knock against them. Dragonbane, I find to be very fun, but I don't know that it's that interesting. Now, Dragonbane adds a little bit of interest. There's a little bit of mechanics, and there's a little bit of, crunch there. A lot of times for people, crunch and complexity go hand in hand with interest. It's not always one-to-one, But I find these games fun, but ultimately I don't find them to be fun for long, right? The candle burns bright, but it burns quick. So on the other hand, there's a lot of games that are very interesting and aren't very fun. I can think of a lot of games that are very interesting, and there's a lot of little mechanical fiddly doodads, but the game is not fun, right? So again, one of the reasons why I'm excited about Daggerheart is because I'm hoping that Daggerheart can be a game that is both fun and interesting for me. So my general take is this type of game seems sort of fun, but I don't know that I would find it super interesting. And I also think, the game even suggests that I think I'm too harmonious of a player, that the challenge-based play might actually be harder for me because my natural instinct is to sort of, I don't want to challenge. Turning a storytelling game into a competitive storytelling game, in a sense, it is interesting. It's an interesting idea, and that I think is I think that's something that I would have to wrap my head around. Now, whether this game is fun or not, that depends on whether or not you like. Usually fun is an emotional thing, and for some people, emotional fun is drama. There are other people who hate drama, right? They don't want to watch, reality TV. They don't want to follow the latest, oh my, did you hear about whatever is happening in the news? They don't want drama. Drama is the opposite of fun for them. If drama is the opposite of fun for you, this game is literally not for you. It's a game of drama. So if you don't enjoy drama, then you won't enjoy this game. I think that goes without saying, and that's totally fine, by the way. The GNS score of this game, 210-0. 110-0, 210-0. It's almost non-existent gamist and zero simulationist. 10 narrativist, 1 or 2 game. I give it a little bit of gamist because it seems like that procedural resolution has a little bit of a gamist element to it with your red, yellow, green tokens and the cards, but it seemed pretty low at that point. Well, the whole point, Beowulf, of DramaSystem is they don't want you to use the procedural system. In fact, they said that they want you to move away from those scenes and just abstract it and not care about it because they don't want you to use it. Because they don't want you to replace it with anything. They just don't want you to use it at all. DDB says, yeah, I've kind of run the course with OSR. I had fun, but after around 6 months, I remember why I don't play that stuff much anymore. And that's generally been my experience as well. It's a fun game, but it can be, depending on the OSR game, and not all OSR games are the same. And I've had a lot of fun running Shadow Dark, and I've had infinite fun in my past running BXD&D. I love BXD&D. But it's something that it's like, am I going to really play that for 6 months? Weekly sessions? No. Am I ever really going to take it super seriously? When my character has 2 hit points and I die at 0? No. Yeah, Derek. I mean, I don't know that Fiddly Bits is necessarily the right solution for this game, because that would sort of counteract what this game is about. This game wants to really focus about the narrative drama and the lack of the gamist elements and the focus just on the narrative elements, Oh, yeah, this is very much a niche game. Even amongst people who, quote unquote, like to role play, I think they would find this game system very oppressive for 2 reasons. One, DDB. One is because you have like the Brennan Lee Mulligans of the world who say, I don't want a system for narrative. I don't want a system for drama. That's something that I can just do myself. These are the so-called like people who go, this is a game for role playing. They don't want a game for role playing. They want a game for everything else that isn't role playing, even though it is role playing, whatever. I'm using their definitions, not mine. And they're like, I just want to be able to like emote an FBT and do all this other stuff that doesn't matter. There's no context of the system. The drama is what we bring through by stepping outside of the game system. So that's number one. And then number two are the people for whom role-playing games are a means of extreme character immersion and have a very strong actor stance where the game is, they don't want to be reminded that they're setting up a scene, that they're playing towards a theme. They just want the game to emerge naturally and evocatively. They don't want to be like, okay, this week's word is love. Next week's word is war. And they're like, well, wait, no, like my character no, it's like, well, this episode is about war. How does your character relate to that theme? Well, I don't want to relate to that theme. Well, then you're doing it wrong. And so that's also, I think, a problem. So you already have taken the niche of players who don't want to just like kill orcs and loot their corpses, and you're down to like the so-called role players. And even amongst the role player groups, you're going to have people who don't want any sort of systemic influence from role playing. And then you're going to also have people who don't want any sort of, authorial or directorial stance in their immersive-based role-playing game. So then you've excluded these people out from this already niche group. It's going to be a small group of people. GM Scott says, I'm sure I'm the odd person out here. You are definitely not. But this not only sounds not interesting, but also very much not fun. Well, Smenden, I mean, to be fair, that's not the game's fault, right? Like, there's great dishes that prepared poorly taste like crap, and there's crappy dishes that prepared well taste amazing, right? Would you love BX if you read it now for the first time after having played actually good game? Absolutely, Boyko. BX is still one of my go-to games at like cons and stuff like that. I don't play it for long duration campaigns. Why do I love BX? Why do I think it's a great game? Because I enjoy its proceduralism. I enjoy it as a dungeon crawler, and I think that game is very good at being a Dungeons and Dragons game. To be clear, I think that all the DNA of D&D and even some of these OSR games links back still to the DNA of this game right here. Well, technically it's the OD&D, but like so much of our modern day ideas of what OSR means came from this, the Magenta set, the BX. And this is a game that is about dungeon crawling. It's not about fantasy adventure. It's not about whatever you want it to be. Nope. It's a game about Dungeons and Dragons. And it's very good at that. And I really enjoy it from that perspective. Oh, Smenda, that's a great point. There's another conflict. People who want to play a game where the conflict doesn't come from the PCs being antagonistic together. That's right. A lot of people don't come to do intra-party conflicts, you know? Absolutely. 2 out of 10 for some, 10 out of 10 for others. Would you run BX if you read it for the first time after having run Daggerheart or Shadowdark? Well, Daggerheart's in a completely different realm, GM Scott. Let's be very clear about that. I mean, I think Daggerheart's really cool. I've run it, the beta. I'm excited to run the production here game with the release game with the players, but I don't think that's an apples-to-apples comparison. Shadowdark, on the other hand, is a more apples-to-apples comparison. Which do I like better if I read it later? I think I would still be... I think I'm still torn. I think I'm still about BX. I think I still prefer BX. Only because I prefer the side-based initiative, and I prefer the structured turns, and, I'm still not sold on this. There's the one thing that the real-time torching thing in Shadowdark to me is just a meme. You played with me where we had 10-minute torches, not 1 hour torches. It's kind of like a meme thing. I don't really fully understand it myself, especially since the game also has in-game time that can pass quickly, but it's like independent of your torches. It's a very strange system. I've always found it's still, even to this day, it's off-putting. And even if I was reading Shadowdark with having ever read BX. That being said, right, I turned it into a game within the game, GM Scott. So, I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but yes, I love the way I did it. And in fact, when I told KOLC about that implementation, she was like, that's awesome. Like, that's so fun, So I enjoyed that. It was kind of, because, we all get distracted, and it's like, who can catch it, me or you? But you have games about dungeon crawling with actual game design. Torchbearer the Heart. Well, as someone who's been running 2 Torchbearer campaigns this entire year, Torchbearer is about dungeon crawling, but not really, Boyko. Torchbearer is a game about using dungeon crawling as a way to show us what your characters believe in and what lengths will they go to fulfill their goals. Torchbearer uses dungeons as a medium for dramatic storytelling, and Heart does the same thing. Fundamentally, BXD&D is a game about simulating dungeon crawling through proceduralism and a very basic stripped down rule set that doesn't really care much about gamist or narrativist elements, if we're being honest with ourselves. So that's why I say that it is like the idea. Now, if you don't like dungeon crawling, then yeah, BX is not going to be with you. I love Shadowdark, but it's so overrated. I cannot believe how much love that game is getting. It's fine. And then Derek says, Shadowdark is the most fine game I've seen in a while. So here's the deal about Shadowdark. Something to remember is that, what's the saying? The most commonly ordered pizza is just a pepperoni pizza. Is that the best pizza? No. But in a way, yes. So, I think what Shadowdark has managed to do is to create a game that is very appealing and a lot of fun, but also doesn't turn people off so aggressively. And I think that that's why it has done so well. So I think that the success of Shadowdark is because what KOLC managed to do with her design, a lot of times games will have a very low floor and a very high ceiling. And I think what KOLC has managed to do is not really give up too much of the ceiling, but managed to bring up the floor a good couple of notches. And there's no doubt to me that, to the average modern player, Shadowdark is infinitely more playable and is going to create far less horrible play pattern experiences as you might get playing BXD&D or, old school D&D or whatever, where you have 1 hit point and you die. That a lot of people are going to play that and go, what the fuck is what is this game? This game is stupid. So Torchbearer has managed to, it compress the, the highs and the lows for sure. But not at times when you compress the highs and the lows, you end up with a shitty game that's right in the middle. And I think KOLC has managed to end up with a game that is still on the upper echelons of that. Maybe it's no longer, maybe it's not a, it's not a 10, but maybe it's an 8. It's an 8 out of 10, and it's 8 out of 10 to a lot of people. And that's a lot different than a game that's, 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. Now, to be fair, if you're a person who is willing to read all this shit or watch all these incredibly long videos, then there's a good chance that there is a game out of there that is a 10 out of 10 for you. But most people don't have the time, the inclination, the money, the wherewithal, the patience to find that game. So how do you do that? Well, you pick a game that's, good enough. That's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that Shadowdark isn't average. Okay? I'm suggesting D&D 5th edition is average and boring. That's what I'm saying. That's why Shadowdark is so impressive. It's because she has created an average, but then shifted the average up a couple points. So that you're going to have, so let me put it this way. When people play Shadowdark, they're going to be, the highest high is going to be a 10 out of 10. There's going to be people who will absolutely love Shadowdark. But the lowest low is going to be like a 5. Versus a game which some people are going to say, oh, I had a terrible experience with that. I had a 1 out of 10 experience with that. I mean, there might be people who have a 1 out of 10 experience with Shadow Dark. But in general, what I've seen from the games being run at cons and stuff like that is that nobody has a horrible time. You might get a lot of people who come around and say Shadow Dark was not a 10 out of 10 game for me. But what she managed to do is bring up the floor without sacrificing the ceiling. Does that make sense? You guys are reminding me that I'm a jaded RPG veteran sicko who has no ability to judge what appeals to the average person. Fair. Yeah, OSE. Well, I mean, OSE is just BXD&D cleaned up, to be clear. But OSE is an example of a game that some people are going to play it and go like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is everything I want out of a game. It's an 8 out of 10. It's a 9 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10. And then a bunch of other people are going to say, this was horrible. It was a 1 out of 10. It was a 2 out of 10. I don't know very many people, that really would, maybe there's some people in the middle, but a lot of people are just one way or the other. And what I'm suggesting is that Shadow Dark doesn't have as many 1s out of 10 and 2s out of 10. Shadow Dark was able to take the bottom and bring it up. And a lot of times when you do that, your highest was a 10, your lowest was a 1, and then you meet somewhere in the middle at a 6. But the highest you can get is like a 7. KOLC managed to maybe you can't get a 10 out of 10. Maybe you can get 9.5 or 9. But like she brought that floor up considerably. And I think that's an impressive feat. And she did it through, practical applications. Now, of course, none of that matters to people who are, have already found that perfect game for them to play. This mostly matters to people who want to explore and find other games and, more importantly, introduce their playing groups to other games. So, because that's the other tricky thing. You may find that 10 out of 10 game for you. Legend of the Five Rings say. Good. Now you got to convince 5 other people that they also want to play this game while avoiding too many negative experiences, let alone, we all know the truth. In RPGs, somebody who rates something a 4 out of 10, even a 5 out of 10, might as well rate it a 1 out of 10 at that point, right? Average might as well be 0. So that is something to be said. Yeah, that's true. At some point, I have to give away an Old School Essentials book. GM Scott donated one for me to give away. I believe GM Scott's exact words were, I have Shadow Dark. I don't know why I would play this again. DDP, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for all the additional input information. Smendon, that is Mark Rosewater. He said, if everyone likes your game, but nobody loves it, it won't survive. The difference is that Shadow Dark everybody likes Shadow Dark, but some people also love it. So it got all the good, but with none of the bad. That's why it's impressive. Does that make sense? This wasn't an OSE stream, mind blown. Lug says, my best solution is to put narrative elements on top of a great combat game like 4E. Personally, I don't see the reason why combat and non-combat systems should be handled with the same resolution system. So Lugs is a great example of the type of person I was talking about before, like sort of the Brennan Lee Mulligan school of thought. I need the game to handle the content, the combat and the task resolution, and I will leave all of the narrative elements, in its own separate bucket, over here. Oh, you're just singing Red Hot Chili Peppers. Okay. I don't disagree with that statement. I just I think it's cooler to have a singular resolution system. That is my preference. But that's because I like coherent game experiences, not Frankenstein game experiences. I'm not a fan of Frankenstein game experiences. Those bother me and upset me. When smash. I like this smash. I want to use that game's arm and that game's leg and that game's body and that game's head and stick it all together. And, it looks like shit and it plays like shit in my personal experience. Anyways, great stream, everybody. We're totally going to be doing some more first looks. We definitely filled up that fund, so really super thanks. You're pulling through big time, along with the rest of you coming in midday. And of course, we are going to do a Daggerheart EU stream. So let me take a look at the time and the schedule. I do have Gen Con. So I'm leaving for Gen Con on the 29th. So it'll either be next week or it'll be the first week of August. We will do a EU Daggerheart stream where we will talk about Daggerheart it'll just be a Daggerheart stream, but we'll do it at the middle of the day, EU time. And we will finally bite the bullet and we will give away one of these bad boys to a European. Or, to somebody else. But, I have to check what it will actually cost me to ship it to various places around the world and maybe exclude certain people. Sorry, I apologize. I'm not paying more in shipping to send you this book than it cost. Sorry, I cannot consciously allow myself to do that. The only reason I'm even okay with this is because it's my understanding that this thing is sold out. I called 8 different game stores in my area, and none of them have any copies of them. Some of them didn't get it ever, but then everybody kept coming in asking for it, and so they were like, okay, I guess we're going to order it. And then other people said they sold it, they sold it out, and they need to order more, and it's on back order printing, and they're not really expecting to get any maybe until the fall. So yikes. So I know it's been sold out. It's been sold out everywhere. So the only reason I'm okay, spending $30 or $40 to ship it is because I understand that you can't just go and buy it. So, nor can you even get it from the website, because the website's sold out. So, these very well may be the only copies available in the world. So we'll see. We'll see what I can get. We have given away four or five copies so far. I'm saving a copy to give away just to my patrons, and then we'll probably give one away to the extended universe of the European people as well. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for making this an incredibly awesome stream. I had a lot of fun. Again, I think we kind of covered the pros and cons of this game. There's parts of it that I really do love Fiasco. It's one of my favorite con games of all time. I don't know that I want to play Fiasco the campaign. There's a lot of elements here about the drama, the player conflict, the fact that the GM's kind of more of a participant, a moderator. I'm sorry, not a participant, more of a moderator that, probably aren't my super cup of tea. But I bet with the right play set, you could have a lot of fun with it. And I think it could be a lot of fun. And especially if you really just like the storytelling parts of the game and you don't really care like whether your jump skill is +8 or +10. And what you really care focused on is intense character drama. This could be a great way for it. And again, the game is a game of drama. It's called the DramaSystem. So it does what it says on the tin, and Bob's your uncle. So I think that's pretty cool there. So big shout out. We had a lot of people come out to support us today. So I do want to name off some names. Shout out to Karima, to DDB, to Lawful Chaotic Neutral, Sam, Ibrahim, Max, Guelful, Futbard, Goblins and Androids, Simon Mago, Duncan DT, DDB8, and Lawful Chaotic Neutral. Again, Rusted Grail, who kicked us off with a massive $75 tip just to get us started. You guys came out incredibly supporting us. I really love the international community that we've built here. I love doing these midday streams for people who can enjoy it, whether that's because you're in Europe or maybe because you're in the US and it's the middle of the day. Either way, it's really awesome that we get to do these. And again, I want to do more of these. I'm not working anymore. My foster dogs have been, sent to the Humane Society to be adopted. So I've done my part for King and Country. So now I can just kind of focus on, me. And, so I'm getting back into the gym. I've been going daily for the last week, which has been huge for me. Just my mental health already, physical health, sure, but mental health, huge. And it was just hard to do when we were taking care of the extra dogs and, all the other stuff. So, even though it's been a very chaotic first quarter to the year, again, I was panic disorder, my father died, and I lost my job. So I love being able to come and talk about games with my patrons and share in this community. And we just did Origins a couple of weeks ago, which is a gaming convention. We had like 20-something patrons show up. Got to hang out with them, talk about games. I'm going to Gen Con in 2 weeks. If you're there, stop by, say hi. I'll be working at the Roll for Combat booth a couple times, but I'll be around. I'll be wearing my nice last call, gear. ETA for Daggerheart AP. Well, we had hoped to do some Session 0 stuff this month. I don't know if that's going to happen. Again, I'm still, these need to be mounted to ceilings and stuff like that. So, things are happening as fast as we can. There's some technology as well, pieces to this as well. So we do have to kind of set some of the stuff up, obviously. We had to unmothball the studio, get everything out while taking care of everything else that we're taking care of. So August 22. I don't know. I want to do it as soon as possible, but just because I want to start playing Daggerheart for my own selfish reasons. I want to play the game. Number 2, my players want to play Daggerheart for their own selfish reasons. They want to play the game. Number 3, we all want to play together and get a game going, which is a lot of fun. 4, I want experience with Daggerheart, like real practical experience, so that I'm better prepared to talk about the game, to write about the game, to create for the game, which I think could be really, really fun and part of this community and fun part for this channel. And quite frankly, could be something that I could use to help support this channel and support my livelihood. So it's not often that Derek likes a popular game. So this is a rare exception for that. So it's coming soon. But in the meantime, look forward to a Daggerheart stream that will be midday. We'll do another giveaway. We're going to do another giveaway for the patrons. So we're going to continue to support Daggerheart. We're going to continue to support Shadow Dark. I still want to design that Mega Dungeon. Definitely not a game. Mega Dungeons are definitely not a thing for Daggerheart. At least I don't think so. You'd have to do some serious, kind of rebuilding. And we've got a bunch of PF2 books coming out, including Starfinder 2, which I consider a PF2 book, which I do want to talk about because I'm still playing in a Pathfinder 2 campaign right now. This Friday we're playing, and it's Starfinder 2 plus Pathfinder 2, plus I'm obviously an Eldamon trainer. So, but and Roll for Combat announced they're doing a new Eldamon book, so I'm super excited about that. And Steven wants to work with me a little bit on that, so I'm excited about that. And I think Eldamon's really great. Yeah, thank you, RPG PhD. I am feeling better. Fantastic. How many sessions do you think you'll need to do to get under the hood of the system? I don't know. I mean, obviously you learn a lot. For me, like the first playthrough is usually enough to tell if there's like some serious issues. Because what I'll do is as soon as I encounter friction, Smendon, I'll either, if it's a game that like really cares about the rules, I'll immediately start grading against them because I'm like, I understand that to violate this would be to violate some core component mechanisms of the game, and that's going to cause problems. If it's a loose game, I'll immediately start making quick changes. So for usually one session, but I'd say 6, maybe 4 to 6, somewhere in that. It depends on the system and how complex it is. 4 to 6 is usually when I feel like I've got a good measure of it. That's sick, Cardboard Enjoyer. I'm awesome. Do you think that the hype is still building or has it peaked? Hard to say, Beowulf. I mean, I think the hype has not dropped off, but I think it has kind of plateaued. I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what Critical Role does. In their post Age of Umbro world and how they're going to do, that type of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. All right, everybody. Well, that is going to do it for us today. Look at that. I got a Tuesday evening free. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Shout out to our European friends. Shout out to everybody who stopped by and enjoyed us stream. And, yeah, I think they definitely need to get some print runs to tables. I mean, it's back ordered to hell, so that's it's hard. It's hard to build the hype when nobody can get a copy of the book, So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks so much again, and thanks to Vorpal Salmon for suggesting this topic, and thank you for everybody for coming in and supporting us. And of course, shout out to all of our patrons. You are the real deal that make this community possible. They obviously make the channel possible, but the community possible is you, and I really, really appreciate that because that's the thing that I'm the most proud of out of all of this. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody.